Recording in progress.
Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, January 13th at noon. Welcome you to our council.
Recording in progress.
Councillor Whitlock with Councillor Christensen. We'll start with Councillor Whitlock. Jeff Whitlock.
Becky Bogdan.
Gary Garrett.
Rachel Whitlock. Patrice McKay.
And Craig Christensen. Very good. And Travis Hoban, we're expecting him to join us anytime. We also acknowledge our city CAO, Scott Henderson. Welcome, Scott. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the December 16th work meeting and the January 6th budget priorities meeting. Are there any corrections that you noticed as you reviewed those minutes, or changes or questions on those minutes? If not, we'll approve the minutes by unanimous consent. Our first presentation is regarding the FrontRunner 2 tracks project. That will be presented by Brian Allen, the UDOT Transit Project Director. Brian, welcome.
Awesome.
It's good to see you again. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
And who else do you have with you here, Brian?
Great. So, actually, Brian Allen. So I work with, thank you for the introduction. Brian Allen with UDOT, and then if you want to introduce yourself, John, your role, and then kind of go down the line.
John, you're not a HDR engineer.
Yes, right.
Great. Yeah, John, you're not with HDR engineer.
Muriel Socinal with X Factor Strategic Communications, helping support with public outreach and communications.
Lance Meister, Cross Spectrum Acoustics, with the noise vibration consultant.
Great, thank you. Thank you all.
How long does it have for this?
25 minutes.
25 minutes. Okay. Well, I'm going to go through, we have some introduction stuff, but I'm going to go through that pretty quick. We presented here before. We went over just the general project, the goals of the project, and we dived down a little bit deep into what, it means in Provo and what the Provo double tracking section looks like. We talked about the right-of-way impacts, and now we're coming back to talk about, focus more on noise and vibration impacts. The original document talked about what the impacts were. They didn't talk about what we were going to do about how we were going to mitigate those impacts. So I'm going to go through these slides. The first one's pretty quick. They're in your packet. If you want me to stop, let me know. There's a video here. I'm just going to skip over that. So once again, this project is a joint venture between UDOT and UTA. The legislature assigned UDOT the responsibilities to assign capital delivery projects. It's very confusing. A lot of people don't know the difference between UTA and UDOT sometimes. We work together very well, and it's really bringing the two transportation agencies closer together. This is a brief overview of FrontRunner. Hopefully everyone here has had the opportunity to write FrontRunner. If not, let me know. I'd love to get you a ticket, get you on the commuter rail. FrontRunner, the goal of this project is really to increase the capacity of FrontRunner, make it a more convenient, easier system to use. We're doing this through a program that really gives money toward commuter rail systems that are successful, has capacity issues, and FrontRunner is one of those systems that qualifies for this federal grant program. Some of the benefits is increased frequency. It's called FrontRunner 2X because we're doubling the frequency. On the peak hour, trains run every half an hour. In the future, they'll run every 15 minutes. In the off-peak, they run every hour, and they'll run every half an hour. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of benefits that come with that. It's more convenient. You attract more riders, and it supports economic development. In order to do this, there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be put in place. Right now, FrontRunner is primarily single track. It kind of blows my mind a little bit when you see a map of really how little of the corridor is actually double track. So you need those 2 tracks with a double track in order to let trains pass each other. We have a video right here. I'm going to skip this. We showed this last time, but if you have any free time and you're transit nerd, go ahead and Google FrontRunner 2X. It's a really good explanation of how the FrontRunner system operates and why these improvements are needed in order to make FrontRunner run more efficiently. So this is the overall project map. It shows all the double tracking. The red is the double tracking. The blue, as you can see, is very sparse and it's mostly at stations is the existing double tracking. And then the red, you can see from north of Lehigh, basically to Provo, this whole section will be double tracked. Actually, we see a lot of our ridership in the south of Salt Lake. And actually, we see a lot of inter-south travel, meaning people not just going to South Lake, but actually riding to and from locations in the southern portion of the FrontRunner system.
I have a question. So back in that slide, so you're saying the only place we don't have double track is in this little section that we're looking at?
In Provo?
Yeah.
Yep.
It looks like the whole thing's blue except for that little teeny
Yeah, this is the little,
piece by Fifth West.
it's one of those things
Fifth
where
and Seventh?
they did all the easy stuff first, right? So
Oh,
all the
okay.
area where that was, you know, a little bit easier to double track, didn't have as much impact. But now we're having to go back and fill in some of those gaps in order to provide that service reliably. Did I step over you?
No, you're fine.
So we're in 2026 right now. We've completed our environmental documents. We've hired a progressive design builder. It's a joint venture that's going to help us because this project's a little more complicated. We have trying to keep FrontRunner operational, trying to work with Union Pacific, work with a lot of stakeholders. We're doing it's called a collaborative, like a alternative delivery, where we bring a contractor on early and we negotiate a price with them and figure out how to phase all this work so it can be accomplished in the safest, most efficient manner instead of just doing a rotated project. They just barely received notice to proceed on that. It's a joint venture. The contractors, RLW and Stacy Whitback, and the main designer is Four Engineers. We anticipate construction starting in 2027 with some early work starting in 2026, and then we're hoping to reach substantial completion in 2030.
I know this is funded at a state level. What is the total funding for this project?
That's a great question. So right now, project's around $3 billion. We have we're about $900 million in state funding, and the rest of it we're pursuing through a federal grant, capital investment grant program through the federal government. So that's why some of this timing is really subject to change. I'm seeing some changes with the federal government that's affected really some of the responsiveness and ability. So I think some of these time might change a little bit.
And you said 3 billion.
Yep.
Over at what period is that?
So we're spending money right now. Yeah, 2030. Yeah. So
your first phase is our phase?
we don't exactly know how we'll approach it all, but it will be one of the earlier phases. We would like to, just because it's so critical to operations. One of the biggest constraints will be just making sure we have all the right-of-way purchased, everything lined up for construction to start.
So that's the first phase is property acquisition.
Yep.
And the second phase would be the building.
Yep. Right.
And then you're looking at maybe doing our phase first because it's smaller and then tackling some of the larger stuff as you go north.
I think it will depend. This one has a lot of right-of-way. All the areas have right-of-way, but we're still working on how the whole pictures have come together. So it's 12 double tracking sections. So we don't know explicitly when this one's going to start yet. We're still working out how the whole program will come together. It's a great question. One, I wish I had like a really good answer. I could say we'll start this day and on this day, but we don't know yet. But we're committed to keep everyone updated.
So it hasn't even gone out to bid. You're just trying to acquire property, right?
So no, we've hired a contractor and designer to help us work through some of these things. But we haven't come to a final solution or final resolution yet. But answer, non-answer kind of help. We don't know yet, but we're working on getting a concrete answer.
Okay, thank you.
But we are moving forward with, buying the right of way, clearing everything for construction, moving utilities, stuff like that right now. So as you pointed out, astutely pointed out, most of the Provo section, a lot of the area in this Provo is actually already double tracked. This is one of the smallest sections that has not been double tracked. It has a big impact on operations because this is where trains actually have to come down to a single track and then they have to go back to the double track at Provo. So really, it's like, I consider it a choke point in the operations of the FrontRunner system. That's why it's one of the most important double track sections to get done. It allows us to utilize the double track that's built before the station, if that makes sense. So in order to complete federal aid projects, we have to complete a federal NEPA document. As I mentioned before, we're pursuing funding from the Federal Transit Administration, also known as the FTA. So this document was completed by the Federal Transit Administration. They're actually the approval authority. They've actually signed and we've completed this categorical exclusion. One of the commitments in our environmental document was to look at noise and vibration. As I mentioned before, we looked at the impacts, but we did not look at mitigation measures. And the commitment in that document was to look at the mitigation measures that are required in order to advance that project. We completed that analysis and we're presenting it.
Thank you.
Yeah. As part of the NEPA, NEPA doesn't really tell you what to do, but it tells you that you have to go through and look at all these different items and make an informed decision. So as I mentioned before, we're going to be talking mostly about noise and vibration. This is a little bit of information that was taken from the presentation I gave a little while ago. I didn't put the whole presentation because we have 25 minutes. That presentation took about just a substantial amount of time last time. But I just want to kind of remind everyone what we've gone over, where we've been, and then if there's any questions. So as we move forward with this alternative analysis, I mean, rail is really not that flexible. It really takes trains a long time to speed up, slow down. They don't turn very nimble. They're not known for being super agile. So when you have two fixed points, you only can really look at widening to one side or the other. You can see right here, this is the UTA track currently right now. It's right next to Union Pacific track. You can always tell the difference because Union Pacific track has darker ballast or rock. UTA track has lighter ballast or rock. You can see right here, in order to add a track right here, we have to scoot over Union Pacific or relocate that. Because Union Pacific is a freight railroad, they have a lot of big equipment. Union Pacific requires a lot of room, so their tracks can't be that close together. In fact, you can see right here, there's just little bollards right there. There's like a detention system in case something falls off Union Pacific track and hits the UTA track. They actually don't allow this anymore. And that was a good, perfect ringtone. Because of just the liability concern. So we'd actually have to move the tracks further apart. So when you start looking at the impacts of relocating Union Pacific with that bigger footprint, go ahead.
Wait, so you're saying that we need to move our tracks further from Union Pacific?
I'm just saying, yeah, if we were, there's two options. There's adding a track here for UTA. There's adding a track right here. In order to add a track right here, we have to move everything over.
Oh, you're just going over the pros and cons
Yeah,
of the list
yeah.
yourself.
I'm
What's the
sorry,
other track?
an engineer is going to engineer, so I'm going to start like diving into it too deep. So basically we looked at going east or west.
What's the track all the way this way?
This one right here,
With the car, yeah, the one with the car.
this is Union Pacific also.
So there's two Union Pacific tracks and just one of the UTA tracks.
Yep, and we got to add a second one. So we looked at adding it to the left or to the right of the existing.
And how often does crap fall off of their trains?
No, never. That's just in case. So that's what those bollards, if you ever wonder what they are, that's what those detection systems are.
Oh, it's just the recess in the,
You can see
or their actual
little-
physical
little
ballots.
bollards right there.
Okay.
Like if you knock one over, it actually sends a signal and kind of shuts the system down. It's really interesting.
Wow.
But that's what they're out there for. So they're called pinch point detections.
Gosh, we wouldn't want yeah, that would be awful.
Yeah, it would be awful. That's why they don't allow it anymore, but that's also why they're there in the first place. So I'm not going to belabor this or go into this in more detail unless people want to. This kind of goes through the pros and cons of what we went through last time when we decided to move and widen to the west as opposed to the east. As I mentioned before, last time we had noise impacts identified. We didn't have mitigation measures. Today we want to go over the mitigation measures. So we looked at noise walls. That's the first thing we look at. Noise walls qualify for here. They're what we call, they adequately mitigate the noise that will be added due to moving the tracks closer to those units. They'll be about 12 to 13 feet above the track elevation. That's how we measure them. Want to just call out that there's different aesthetics that can be chosen for those noise walls. These are the two most popular. These are from the UDOT standard noise walls in our standard. Here's a picture of where the proposed noise walls will go. You can see right here, because these units have to be removed due to the proximity of track. There's plenty of room. You can see right here, because of this crossing right here, the noise walls for these two units get pretty close to those units. So that's something we'll have to look more as we go.
So I'm wondering, can the noise wall go a little bit around the corner there?
Oh, right here?
Yeah.
So we went through and modeled it. It could, but I don't know if it's needed. That's what Lance, our noise
So you don't
expert.
need to make a difference in the noise
Yeah.
of those.
That's,
Apartments are right there.
yeah, that's most of the noise is coming from here. That's what Lance can confirm. Okay. We do need to kind of work with these owners to figure out some of the impacts associated with the noise walls that close to their house. It's not 10. So.
Do they have any windows? Do they have any windows on that north side?
Excuse me?
Your apartments.
Yeah, the apartments have any windows on that north side? The Madison Park condos?
I'm not sure. So that's definitely something we need to have dialogue with these stakeholders and something that will have to be taken into account in the right of way process.
And those are 2-story ones, the Madison Park.
I believe so. I believe so. First.
So if this wall's only going to be 12 to 13 feet, you're still.
From track elevation. So that's from where the track is right now.
So
So
is it-
typically the track is here, and then like there's grading off to allow for water.
Okay,
So here there'll actually be some retaining walls, and then the wall will be on top of the retaining wall.
so is it gonna be high enough that the people on the second story are gonna not hear anything? Or are they gonna get all of the noise and the train horns?
You know, Lance? Well, I mean, they will hear the train still.
Just the.
So,
They will still hear trains, so the wall won't eliminate the noise completely, but we designed it to provide mitigation for that second story. And that's why they have to be that tall in this area, so that they can provide mitigation for the second story units.
So will they be tall enough that they're like roof to top of wall? Or are they gonna be like, here's the roof and the wall's gonna be?
I'm not sure exactly how that looks, but it's enough to block the noise, what we call the line of sight. So if you can't see the source of the noise, then the wall is affected. So that's what we're looking at, is the line of sight to the locomotives, to the people's windows and residences.
So like, give me a percentage, like without the walls, you're gonna hear like all the track noise and stuff, and I'm sure, I mean, I can hear the horns all the way to my house, right? And I'm like stinking way far away from here. How much is that gonna diminish the noise? 50%, 75%, then having nothing there at all?
So what we're looking at is, there's kind of a minimum level of about 5 dB is what we look at for an effective wall. So you can think about 10 decibels is about a doubling or a halving of the noise, depending on which direction you go, up or down. So we're looking at about 5 dB for those upper story, and it's going to be more like 10 or 12 dB for the lower story. They'll get much more benefit because the walls, relative to where they are, is so much higher. So that's what we're trying to do, is at least achieve that 5 decibels in order to be what we call an effective barrier. If you're not getting more than that, it's not an effective use of money to spend on something, if it's not actually going to provide any benefit.
So 5 dB is like, if it's like, what's the normal, it's in our noise ordinance, like 70 or something? That's what their noise ordinance is, 70. So you're saying if something's 70 dB, you're gonna come down to 65 is what it's gonna be heard on that?
Yeah.
So it's gonna cushion it a little bit, but not a whole lot.
It's going to be better, but I mean, they will still hear the traffic. They're not going to be, the noise doesn't go. It's like a noise barrier on a highway. It does reduce the noise, but it doesn't.
Well, I live by the highway and I don't really notice it, but, okay. So at night, are we still looking, what are we looking at the noise of these trains? Are they 70 or are they 65? Are they 50? What's the noise like? I know the horns are definitely louder than that, but Just the regular.
Yeah, this is quiet, so they don't sound the horns regularly except in emergency situations. So we don't have those. So it's just the locomotive and the cars going on.
And what is that normally?
It depends on the speed of the trains and the distance from the train to where you're talking about, but here it's probably. Yeah, probably the maximum noise was probably in like the around 70 or something at those homes, something like that.
So it's about what we would normally have for a noise ordinance. What's our noise ordinance at night?
I don't know, but 70 to 80 is generally a range you hear, and it's not offensive. You start getting above 80, 90, 100.
Oh, the horns are offensive.
That's, yeah. No, the horns are different. That's horns, this won't do much, but we don't anticipate horns enough. We don't want to see horns at all.
Oh, I never want to see the horn quiet sound restricted ever again. All right, thank you.
Is that 70, is that what they hear? Or is that what's coming off the tracks? And maybe that's a stupid question to ask, but.
Well, that would be an outdoor level. So inside the buildings, it'd be already much, much lower, you know, with windows and
Sure.
facade and everything. So a typical building is going to give you 25 to 30 decibels of reduction from outside to inside. It's well constructed, has decent windows.
But like, is it 70 decibels coming off the train or by the time?
They get their facade of their building, roughly. I don't.
So at their building, it's gonna sound like about 70 decibels.
Outside.
It sounds relative, I guess. That's what I'm asking. Like 70 decibels on the freeway, by the time it gets to me, it's only a few decibels, right? And
So it
so,
does drop off.
yeah, so that's 70, not at the tracks, but that's, okay. Well, I was just looking it up and said it's about the sound of a vacuum. So.
Well, those
But that-
kind of comparisons are very misleading. That's like, you know,
Sure.
2 feet from a vacuum cleaner versus, you know.
Well, that's why I'm asking if it's relative, right? So 70 decibels when it hits the house
But he's
is,
not sure it's 70, you're
I
guessing.
mean, it's
He doesn't know
in
the number.
the range. I don't have the number.
well, I'm just saying, here's my point. If somebody has a vacuum outside my front door, it's probably not terrible. Now, if that were all day, every day, right? But it's a sound of a free, you know, it's freeway sound. It's not gonna be like, to your point, it's not like it's like right in my ear at 70 decibels, right? It's gonna be outside my door. It's gonna sound like somebody's running a vacuum outside my door when it goes by. Type
Yeah,
thing.
and
I'm just trying to put it in perspective, that's
Yeah.
all. It's not
And-
scientific or anything.
and what we really look at is what's the change due to the project. There's already noise out there that the people are experiencing, and then so what's the change with the track being a little bit closer and then with additional trains as well. So that's what we're looking at, is how we define where there's impacts, and that's why on the previous slide that
Right.
you know, Brian showed those impacts, or where we have that change exceeds a certain threshold, and that's why we define impacts. How we define impacts.
Okay, I was just trying to conceptualize it. Some, you know, vacuum outside my door is probably not terrible.
Brian, let's have you finish with your slides and then I know we'll have other questions.
Okay. So right here, we have highlighted what's called a benefited receiver. So as we discussed right now, on this slide right here, these are people that are impacted, meaning they receive more noise over the FTA threshold, which I believe is 5 dBA.
No, that's just for the wall.
Okay. Well, it's basically over threshold that we deem acceptable in the FTA noise criteria. So these are called benefited receivers. So part of the process is basically identifying these benefited receivers. We're going to have a public open house. We're going to send letters to them and allow them to express if they like the wall, if they don't like the wall. If we receive more than 50% opposition to the wall, then we don't obstruct the noise area. So it's kind of how that process works. We have a slide in here a little bit later that identifies that. Just one way clear, you know, it's the property owner, so the tenant doesn't get a vote or doesn't get to do that. But we also don't, our default assumption is that we're going to build it. But if we get a lot of people opposing it, then we will construct that. We can look at different mitigation measures if necessary. We also look at vibration. So with trains, you get the two main things are noise and vibration. Union Pacific makes a lot more vibration because they're a lot heavier, a lot longer than the FrontRunner. But once again, as some of these FrontRunner tracks are getting closer to some of these units, we look at vibration. A lot of these units, like for example, these ones, these impact receivers are to be relocated, so they're not, don't have to be vacated. However, you can see right here, we do have some other vibration mitigation, vibration issues. So you know, notice right here, we have what's called a switch that allows trains to take different movements. So we have a switch right here, right in front of the station. This switch isn't to be used all the time. This is just to reroute trains and to make the double tracking as effective as possible. In case, you know, a train breaks down, trains break down. So it makes that section of track unusable. But with a switch, we're allowed to move the trains around those, you know, down trains or track if something happens. So we're replacing these with special switches called spring well frogs that basically make it so when a train goes right through them, they don't hit, they don't cause vibration. So these spring well frogs will make it so the majority of time, there's no vibration that occurred as the trains go through the switches. Over here, as this track is getting closer to these units, there's a change in vibration. We put in what's called a ballast mat. It's really not that revolutionary. It's some asphalt with just basically a mat of rubber that helps absorb and mitigate any vibration that can be passed through the train into the ground to those. So with all of these mitigation measures, with the noise and the vibration mitigation, we're able to mitigate all of the impacts associated with the project from a noise and vibration standpoint. Want to give people a quick update. We're waiting to finish up this noise and vibration analysis. We are ready to start making offers, a lot of the property and start appraisals. So once we release this, we're going to release the noise and vibration study after we want to present to everyone here first. After this, we'll be presenting it, posting it on our website. So if you want to learn more about noise and vibration, that'll be posted there. And we're going to start actually going through doing appraisals, making offers, and moving forward with the right-of-way acquisition process. Community engagement, as you probably know, we've had a public meeting already last year. We're planning on having another one in January, just to continue the dialogue and present these noise results. Do want to just once again kind of point out the survey balloting. We're going to release that, have an official comment period, and send those ballots out to those benefited receivers that we saw highlighted in yellow, January 15th to the 29th. And then we'll have kind of giving everyone probably getting a little busy, but the public meeting on January 27th. So that will be at the same elementary school. Was that to the Lincoln?
Franklin.
So off. Wasn't it? Kind of close to president. Any other questions? Sure. Hard to go fast there.
Okay. Go ahead. I was just wondering, I started to try to look at my, sorry.
Just tap the, there you go.
Okay, thank you. So sorry I came in a little bit late, but I saw on your timeline that you were going to have 15-minute service in 2030. Does that also include Sunday service? I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yeah, so the goal of this project is not Sunday service. The goal of this project is more frequency. UTA is exploring adding Sunday service after this project. Right now, Sunday is one of the only time we have to build a lot of this because FrontRunner is shut down on Sunday. So we don't want to add Sunday service and try to build this project at once. If UTA can find the funding, they will add Sunday service. Project. I know the executive director has said multiple times that he really wants to have Sunday service.
Yeah, but it requires more funding.
Yeah, but I think they're looking internally for it.
Okay.
So just that more service requires more operational costs.
All right, thank you.
Rachel.
Yeah, I had a question about the sound walls and whether they absorb or reflect the sound. I don't want to create a situation in which you're getting the sound echoing back to the north or east side of the tracks. And I don't know enough about physics to be able to address that, but maybe you do.
I do.
Okay, wonderful.
So interestingly, when the train goes past the wall, the train is blocking any reflected noise to the other side anyway. So you don't actually have that path. It's a little different from highway barriers where you have just cars going by and you hit the one wall, and then the reflections are a big issue in highway noise barriers. But because the train is actually essentially moving along, it's acting as its own barrier to that reflection to the other side. So they wouldn't be having any increases in noise on either side.
Alright. Does the texture of the wall, is that a relevant factor beyond aesthetics?
It can be, and there are barriers that are designed to have some absorption where you get little cracks and crevices and stuff that help absorb some of the noise. But the primary function of the wall is to block it for the people behind it.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
I just have a
Becky?
question. The Mountain View condos, those are the only ones you guys are purchasing. The rest are gonna be left intact, right? Everything else along the track.
There's one right over here. This one's also being purchased. This
The one in the boulders?
The Meadows, yeah. This one we have to relocate the sewer line actually. Through, I forget that I don't should touch the board. So
I encourage you.
So we actually have to, there's some sewer line relocation that comes through here. To push that sewer, that's actually a Provo City sewer line into that building. So we relocated that. Right now, we're not into, so it's just these units right here. Don't anticipate relocations associated with this noise barrier.
So Brian, after you met with us last time, which was what, 3 months ago?
Okay.
You had a meeting at, I think at Franklin with mostly residents from Mountain View.
Yeah.
How did that meeting go? I haven't heard from residents since then, but at that point they came, they were concerned about relocation. Some of those that were going to be staying were concerned.
Yeah.
That impact on HOA, that kind of thing. How did the meeting go from your perspective?
My perspective was really positive. I mean, it's a very emotional thing to have something like this happen, right? I think it was a good opportunity for them to explain how the process is. I think a lot of it's just they don't know, right? Like they've heard this, they don't understand exactly what the details are, how it works. We're able to break out into different rooms based on if you're renting a condo or if you own a condo, go through the detailed process of how the acquisition process works, what the compensation looks like, and really the timeline of how it functions. I think a lot of people, especially the people left here in the remaining units here at the Mountain View condos, they expressed a lot of desire to have a noise barrier here. I think that will help hopefully mitigate a lot of the concerns. From the HOA perspective, we have to look at the finances from basically what we're purchasing, and that will be taken into account to appraisals.
Anywhere along the route, have you ever had a group greater than 50% oppose the noise barrier? That really seemed unusual to me.
My career at UDOT, I have not seen a noise barrier voted down. We're calling UTA's policy here.
Yeah.
I have seen some controversies like at Park City where people were not benefiting receivers, but they wanted to see the view.
Oh, I see.
You have
Okay.
a little bit of like I want to say, but I'm not a benefiting receiver. So you've had some fun
Right.
dialogue back and forth there. But Lance, have you seen noise barriers voted down much, or you have a lot more experience than I do?
I'd say very rarely, but that's typically one of the main reasons is blocking the view. Or people who are concerned that it might become a visual impact, graffiti, things like that, that they might be concerned about that. But those are the only things that it's really rare that I've seen a wall be voted down.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. Mayor?
Thank you.
Mike.
We'll be able to do simple things. Okay, so because there are the two noise walls, it seems like, the residents in Mountain View condos wanted a noise wall. Madison Park might be a little bit of a different story because it's so close, who knows? But do you separate that out into they either all get it or they all don't get it?
I don't know. And I don't know, but we don't know, we can go back one. But my past experience is based on run of wall. Like this wall is treated with this wall, but I can go back and verify that to make sure.
But is this wall from 5th West all the way over to probably 7th West?
Yeah.
Is that a one wall? So like if Madison Park rejects it, then the rest of them are out, or I mean?
Let me go back and look. I'm not for something. I don't want to give you.
Cause that's a big hunk of wall from 57.
I'll go back and follow up. I don't want to-
Any other questions for Brian or any of those that have come with him? All right, thank you, Brian. Thanks for updating us, and we'll watch for continued information and certain feedback from residents we'll share with you. So thank you for coming today. Next, we have an ordinance amending Provo City Code regarding development in sensitive lands. This will be presented by our planning supervisor, Aaron Ardmore. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you. So this amendment, there's two small amendments in here, and one of them was asked for by the city council. So you should have a sufficient background on that one. It's removing the exception to the 100-foot setback from the river.
I wonder if were we supposed to cross out? What is it? This one right here?
Catrice, are you talking about the 40-foot thing for the city? It is included in as much that the 40-foot thing is in subsection of the 100-foot thing that we're taking away. So it's getting taken away in the context of if there was an exception for someone to not have to follow the 100-foot easement, they would. So if someone got the exception, then they would still also have to have the 40. But we're taking away the exception, so the city is fine.
So the city was still on a
Yeah.
easement, no problem.
Yes, this was just a protection for the city if we did exemptions, but we're not doing exemptions, so it's just that.
Great, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, Malia. Malia obviously helped a lot with getting this through the process. No, I appreciate it. The other one, since we were in this chapter of code, our Hanamawaga in our building division found this other opportunity to improve permit process. A goal that we're always thinking of. So in a high water table area of the city, there's additional requirements that the applicant or homeowner has to provide. In this case, it was a hold harmless agreement that gets recorded at the Utah County Recorder's Office. That was required before a building permit was approved. The ask is just to shift that to before a certificate of occupancy is given. So that way it kind of speeds up the front end of the permit review and approval, but we still ensure that it's done and recorded before people can occupy the residence.
Becky?
So my question comes into, this section talks about basements, right? Does this have anything to do with they're allowed to build a basement or they're not allowed to build a basement, or does it just have to do with?
Just building in sensitive lands.
Well, right. Let's say you build out at my house, right? It's just sensitive land. And something goes wrong and they can't get that permit into occupancy, and then you've got this house that's out there that's not livable rather than beforehand. Is that going to be a problem? Because that's what I'm looking at here.
We don't anticipate that being an issue. We did run this by Public Works, Shane Winters specifically, to make sure that everybody is agreeable to this change. But the knowledge of that condition comes on the front end of the permit. So it's approved with the condition that this hold harmless agreement is signed and recorded prior to certificate of occupancy. So they see that up front, so they can do that at any point between permit submittal and when they're ready for the CO.
I don't know. I mean, I see the wisdom in doing it beforehand, because if they can't get that permit before that occupancy, right? We still have this building with a basement or a house with a basement that's not occupiable. And
I don't anticipate that.
We would do that evaluation before the building permit is even issued. Building permit is reviewed by many different divisions, and that decision would be made before the building permit is even issued. Whether or not there's going to be a basement, the basement can be done properly. Those kind of assurances about the full permits issued.
okay, so
Because we don't want to end up with that exact scenario.
because I don't want that to happen,
They can't be occupied now, but that's right.
because that's horrible.
Right.
I would much rather have it up front and have that signature and everything done with the county than on the end of it, because I don't want that to happen. I don't want all these creepy houses, because what happens in my experience, when somebody doesn't occupy their house, you get homeless that live in there, you get the kids that go in there, it starts to fall apart.
It's also C for buildings there that we're not going to be occupying, so that would happen before any of that. But we're aware of all of this, and so that's why we're careful before we issue that building permit.
Cause I've had a couple of those in the house, in the neighborhood, and they're bad. Okay,
Jeff,
I have some questions just to help me get up to speed a little bit on some of the river setback requirements. So first question I have is just like, are there, I think I know the answer, but are there any projects that are currently in the pipeline that would be affected by this change, or are we kind of just giving a pass to already approved projects?
those are grandfathers.
There's none
Grandfather.
that I'm aware of that are using that exception, that haven't already been approved and started the building process.
Okay. And then my understanding, and this could be incorrect, but is the idea here is that we're removing this exception while in parallel looking at a broader framework to better protect and embrace the river as a community?
That's my understanding. We anticipate getting some direction from the council administration on a river corridor plan that our department will take on and work on and bring back to you. But that hasn't yet started.
Okay. And have we decided a timeline for that, or is it a pending item?
It seems to be, from my understanding, it's a pending item. Just waiting for some direction on that.
Okay. Thank you.
questions?
And what direction do you need? My understanding was that was already happening. We talked before about the urgency, and I realized that means months, not days. My understanding was that was already in process.
So what we've started is doing some background research and getting some ideas and goals and documents together that would help set a foundation for a plan. But there hasn't been clear direction that I'm aware of from the city council or administration on what that plan should entail.
Okay, so what do you need from the city council? There's probably things you need from the administration as well, but what do you need from the city council?
Well, I would clarify, my interpretation is that we have received sufficient direction from the city council to proceed the river corridor plan that would treat the river as a design corridor like we do several streets in the city. We're not going to start that until we have finished the stationary plan process. We're still finishing the rezoning on that because that's the staff members that's going to lead this effort, the river.
Okay.
So I don't think we're waiting for more direction from you.
Okay.
I think we're waiting to get stationary plans completed. As we start that planning process, we've heard some goals from council that will be hard to accomplish all
simultaneously.
So we may be coming back to you asking for priorities in terms of helping to craft that river corridor plan.
Okay.
But the idea is for that to be adopted into ordinance, so it is enforceable. It's not just a general plan document. It would be an ordinance just like all the street corridor design plans that we have.
Director Pepperoni, can I ask you a question? What was the thought process for deciding to use the mechanism of a design corridor plan as opposed to potentially like an overlay zone?
This was debated, and I think we talked about overlay zones. We talked about several different tools that could be used. It was, I think, my recommendation that we treat it as a corridor like we do the streets. Because it gives us a really good framework we already have to be able to define exactly what it is we're trying to accomplish and what the requirements are to accomplish that. An overlay zone is going to, that's another way it could be done, but I just like the corridor plan better, the idea better. We could still do it as an overlay. If the council wants us to shift direction, let us know. But we ended up in the same location, ended up in the same result either way.
And have we documented the specific goals and objectives the council has communicated to you that we're trying to accomplish?
That's something I'm working on as council staff. So that way, when Aaron and his team, they are working on this actively and they need additional feedback, that's where I'll step in and make sure that listening to our previous meetings and our minutes, make sure all those goals are defined. That's something we've already been working on as council staff. So we'll be in close coordination with them as we draft it. But if we need any more info, I'll be reaching out.
just as someone coming into this process, I'd love to see like a high level guiding memo that kind of lays out the objectives, just to get some, ensure we're all aligned. I think would be really helpful.
Yeah, we can work on that.
Yes, in fact, Bill, before you sit down, if you wouldn't mind, and when do you anticipate being to start on this? I know you've got the other project you're trying to finish up.
The rezoning to sit here, everything should be done first quarter of this year, correct?
Yeah, we've started on the first station on 2230 North Station. So the others will follow. The others are a bit more complicated, but I'd anticipate we can get through all those by late spring or late summer.
Okay, and you're comfortable that you've got the protection in place to make sure that something doesn't happen before we get that done?
Going to initiate any legislation, which would give us a 6-month window. But I think writing this actual ordinance is probably going to take more than 6 months. Yeah, I don't know what else to do other than declare moratorium.
Well, maybe we declare a moratorium.
But even that only gives us 6 months, right, Brian? Moratorium only gives us 6 months.
I think that's right, and you also have to have very specific findings about what the imminent harm is in order to do the moratorium. I'd have to look at the statute though, because we haven't done one.
If I may, I believe removing the exception kind of provides us that safety net. That was the idea of making sure that people can't build within 100 foot.
Right.
We might come back with the design corridor and say, you can in this area for these uses. That might be something that comes out of the plan. But for now, it's nobody gets closer than 100 feet.
All right, I would add my second to Jeff's request. It'd really be helpful just to get this documented. This is obviously a very involved process, and it would just be helpful to know where we are in that process.
That's something, just so we're out there, I'll work on that in coordination with them, and I'll send it out. Just
Great,
so.
thanks, Malia. Aaron, do you have more to present?
I don't.
Okay, other questions for Aaron? All right, very helpful. Thank you, Aaron, and thanks, Malia, for your work on this. Thank you both. All right, next we'll move to the ordinance amending the zone map classification of real property generally located at 258 West, 200 North from the general downtown DT1 zone and the residential conservation zones to the medium density residential in the Timp neighborhood, presented by City Planner Dustin Wright. Welcome, Dustin.
Thank you. All right, so this highlighted property here is one that the applicant is looking to have rezoned. And as you can see on this property, there's some existing homes there. Those are originally built as single family homes. A few of those have been converted over the years into duplexes, triplexes. But they're original design single family. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. And this next one is their proposed concept plan to redevelop this site and to listen to the feedback that they've received from the neighborhood to keep those single family homes and then to be able to develop around them. So they're requesting that MDR zone to accomplish this concept here. Each of those single family homes, like I mentioned, he's planning to have those for sale. His goal is to have them to be owner occupied. He's looking to do a development agreement. The development agreement wouldn't have a deed restriction that they're owner occupied.
So it does have a deed restriction?
Does not.
Odd.
But that they would go from, duplex or triplex or whatever their current use is to just a single family home. And that's what that would be part of. The remaining portion of the property, he's planning to develop with 4plexes and 5plexes. Those would be maintained and under single ownership and rented. There's one duplex here on the 200 North, just right there on the bottom corner there. That duplex would be one that would be kept for rent and not for sale. Yeah, that one right there. So the rest of them are gonna be, for sale and brought down to just single family as opposed to those. So the property on the corner, of Third North and Third West, that's currently a vacant, parcel. So he would build a fourplex there for his daughters that would live in they'd each own a unit on the upper level, and then they would be able to rent out the lower level. So he'd put that into the development agreement that would be, that those two upper units would be owner occupied. So those are kind of the things that he's proffered so far in a development agreement. As well as capping the density. So the density that we see here for these, for this whole site would be 17 units per acre, or the MDR zone allows up to 30. So the development agreement would cap it at that 17. And then the concept plan would also be part of the development agreement as well. Then here's some of the renderings of those different building types and their floor plans. And the current zoning on the property, that's majority of it's the residential conservation zone and a little bit of the downtown, general downtown DT1 zone. So that whole thing would become MDR. And the Timp neighborhood plan looks to preserve the RC zone, or to look at these rezones on a case-by-case basis, with the intent to try to preserve those single-family homes and that unique housing mix that they have there. So that's kind of a goal from the Timp neighborhood plan, that he would be able to help keep that through this. So that's kind of a nutshell on this one. If there's specific questions, I'd be happy to answer some of those.
Thank you, Dustin. Questions for Dustin, Councillor Bogdan?
So do we know why he is not proposing that every sale of these units would be owner occupied? Do we know his hesitation, or?
He plans to sell them to someone that would owner occupy them, but he doesn't want to do a deed restriction just because of the restriction that places, makes it a little more challenging to sell. I'm sure if push came to shove, he might go that route, but so far he hasn't proffered to do that.
He hasn't proffered to do it, but he just has said that it makes it harder to sell, so he doesn't want to.
I don't know all the reasons behind it. It's just not something he's felt comfortable doing, but you could ask him that tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McKay?
I think we should have for the deed restriction on the 9, right? But why the other ones aren't owner occupied is because he's not making much money on this. It's definitely not a normal developer's deal. He had to pay so much for the land that he does need the rental for the other one's rental to make up what he's going to lose in the development. But what's so great about this development is, number one, it's great infill, and we're getting a unique pocket neighborhood type situation. You know, why this one house is not going to be owner occupied is because it's had to utilize parking around it. You know, doesn't make it a very good owner piece. It's gonna be part of the communal land here to create the parking needed for all this infill. But this is an example of like unique creative infill downtown that does add a lot more density, but still respects neighborhood plan. And we're doing exceptions, right? We're doing exceptions in the width of the roads and in the parking situation, but it makes sense in the space where it's going. And to add, so this is an area that had only one owner occupied unit on the whole block, and now we're gonna have 9. That's huge. The neighborhood's really, really excited about that. And to save, so the 7 homes are historic. I think some of us walked down and looked at them, but they are beautiful, historic, early 1900 homes. They're going to be saved. And that was another thing. It's really hard to find. That's another expense here, right? That the developer's not going to make as much money because he's reworking these old homes, which makes it more expensive than just leveling and doing higher density and new construction. But yeah, I'm really excited about this one. But I do think we should get a deed restriction on the 9 owner occupied ones, so that they do stay occupied in perpetuity.
Counselor Christensen.
Yeah, I agree. This is a bit of a special, development. And as a city, I think we're being very accommodating to what the developer is asking for. I would also feel strongly about this being deed restricted, for the ones that are for sale. I would like to see more of them for sale, including, the family units that will be sold at some point. I think those should be deed restricted as well. But yeah, I think it's a great project.
Dustin, do the 9 that are being referred to include that fourplex? I count 5 homes on the west side of the road, 2 at the top, 1 at the bottom. That's 8. Where's the 9?
So it would be these ones.
5, 6, 7.
And then these are 2.
Oh, I see. Okay, so those 2 are
Those 2 are included.
9, but
And
not,
then each of those 2 will have like an ADU.
okay.
Yeah, so that one on the corner would be a fourplex.
Yes, but it's
The
only
2 upper ones would be owner occupied and the 2 lower would be
So 2 homes.
rent.
About that house at the bottom.
This one?
Yeah.
That's
So that'd be
one of
10.
the- So that is an old home that will be remodeled too. It's historic. But you can see how they've had to utilize it for parking for the whole HMA, so to speak. So that one will not be owner occupied.
I see. Other questions for Dustin? Yes.
Yeah, so I'm like Catrice, so excited about this project because this is really a neighborhood driven project and we are so fortunate that we found a developer who's willing to do this.
I will talk to like lots of people.
Oh, so many people. So this is great. I'm wondering on the 3rd house up from the bottom that has street parking only, is there no way that we can like do some variance to squeeze in a driveway for them next to the house so that they can have some off-street parking? That's because one of my neighbors just to the north of me has no off-street parking. No,
On the street.
right there.
Yes, come out.
Oh, it says no, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's going off what it currently has. That is a big thing.
yeah, but if we
I
could
assume they-
squeeze the driveway in, what is that possible?
If they proposed it, we would have.
Okay, yeah, because functionally, that would be nice if there was a little drive where you could tandem park 2 cars. Like I say,
This one's street parking only too.
yes, but there's room that they can add parking.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure if the setbacks were wide enough that parking could be added for that one that's 3 up. So that's just what, like, if we need to do some sort of exception to allow a little driveway for parking there, I want us to do that because that will make it nicer for the family
Maybe
there.
for tonight, know what the law is, and if there is space, we can look it up, so that we know, we can tell them that.
Yeah, that they could put that in. Because that's really, really helpful to be able to get a car off the street.
And I think one of the other things too, in the MDR zone, it does allow for ADUs. But these would become single family homes. And so the new buyer, if they wanted to do an ADU, they would have to go through the steps, and parking is one of those. So if they wanted to be able to do one, they'd need to find the space on their property to accommodate that parking. So we would see those proposals come in as
Right.
property owners look to do that. The property on the south corner there that's doesn't have over to the left, yeah, that one. That doesn't have parking, as you mentioned, but it's currently being used as a triplex. And it would become a single family home. So just right there, it's already, the parking situation is improving on some of these, so.
Yeah, and there's room where you could put parking there probably. I mean, it's a corner, so it gets weird on where parking's allowed.
This is a situation where the neighborhood plan really helped the city staff. And that as soon as Mr. Reynolds died a couple of years ago, developers started coming into us and asking about taking down all of the homes and doing one large apartment building. And to be able to say the neighborhood plan calls specifically for saving those homes along 300 West, the staff won't support a proposal like that because the neighborhood plan really helped drive it towards what you're seeing today. This neighborhood plan was very instrumental.
Yeah. Rachel, I mean, sorry.
And I think this is an example, like we received an email from Mr. Davis today, or yesterday, I think, about about, you know, worrying about not be able to do creative neighborhoods because a 30-foot road, but there's going to be infill differences, and we know that, and this is an exception we're giving to a great infill that is appropriate. And, you know, police and fire did have to look at this and make sure that they can access the homes in need of an emergency, but there will be exceptions for these downtown historic areas, and we expect that, and we want that for the right infill project.
Just a quick question about the sidewalk. This is currently a 3-foot sidewalk. And is he being required to do a 6-foot sidewalk?
I believe that he's kind of proffered to do something as far as he gets required to do so. So I don't know if Public Works has thoughts on that, but.
Yep. So Gordon Hayden, Public Works. So he's agreed in the plans to replace the sidewalk and the curb and gutter through there. We have also put in a CDBG grant to help supplement some of that cost. So while he still carry the larger portion of it, if we end up getting that grant, this will make this a much more affordable project, because this is so desirable for the community in the CDBG area. We're one of the ones filling out the application and following through with that.
And so if the grant doesn't happen, does he have to bear the entire cost then?
He has to bear the entire cost.
And is that necessary? I mean, a 6-foot sidewalk is nice to have. I'm just wondering, in this kind of neighborhood, I've been here, walked through it, just seems very walkable. I just hate to see him bear unnecessary costs.
That's an exception the council probably could give, staff can't, because that is not our spec. So.
But where I live, we've had a lot of development done, and some of it still has the old, I don't know what's 3 feet. Our sidewalks are really narrow, but they're brand new construction. They did not have to widen their sidewalk. It's funny because they run into the park, which did widen their sidewalk and has a 6-foot sidewalk, but it goes from 6 to 3 or 2, whatever it is, where this new construction is. So why did they not have to do it?
In some places we get money in lieu of, so we don't have just this in and out of large. I'd have to look at your specific site, but these kind of projects, this is the standard spec that we have. We're going to adjust that. That's something that could be done. We recognize the cost. He's agreed to do that, and it shows in his plans he's asked us to approve. We offered to help cover some of that cost with the CDBG grant, if that comes through.
What percentage would you be covering?
If we get it, it seemed like it was close to 50% is what we'd be covering.
And what I'm thinking about, some of these older homes have really cool gates and fence, like wrought iron, old antique. Like, is that going to make those have to go away?
Oh, there's plenty of park strip. If you look around where the store came in front, they got rid of the high back curb. So this whole block's about half done according to our spec.
You know, you can get rid of the gutter curbs,
Yes.
That's happiness.
Yeah, so this gets rid of those deep gutters. It just really enhances the neighborhood. It makes it nicer. Those, everywhere we go, we try to get rid of those.
Yeah.
Becky.
So I have a concern with ADA. I mean, in my neighborhood, you can get those 3 or 4 foot sidewalks, and then you get the 6-foot sidewalks on the newer builds, right? But if this is gonna require a new sidewalk, aren't we the final vote in the CDBG grant funding anyway?
Yeah.
So
Make sure that.
exactly. I just, we're getting so many complaints already about non-ADA compliance around the city. It'd just be really nice. I think this would be a great opportunity to just make the 6-foot sidewalks and just allow these people to, I mean, some of these older homes, you know, they're already one level anyway. Some of them are wonky, but if you've got somebody even that gets into a car wreck and needs that, or those little weird knee scooters that you see a lot of people go to anyway, I just think 6-foot sidewalks would just be better. Sorry.
Especially if this is for the rest.
Yeah, I'm just gonna push back. That is a good point. This is a direct path to the rec center.
What is our neighborhood block on sidewalk?
Thank you, Dustin. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you for your help with this. And we'll look forward to discussing this further tonight during our council meeting. Thank you. We'll now move to an ordinance amending the zone map classification of real property generally located at 1149 North, 850 West from R18 to R16 in the Rivergrove neighborhood, presented by Aaron again.
Subbing in for Nancy. She had a conflict in the schedule, so I'll do my best. So this is another infill request. So you can see the property there. There's one home on the south, and there's some kind of unused vacant land on the off the north street of that road. Here's the concept that they took through with Planning Commission. Rest assured, Planning Commission and staff kept on pushing the applicant to get rid of that weird little alley behind the south home.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that has been a point of discussion, and the request or the recommendation from the Planning Commission has adjusted to address that. So the rezone itself would be to rezone the top portion to low density residential LDR zone to create those two infill single family home sites. And then the property to the south to R16. So the zone, the lot standards for the zone can be satisfied without providing that little notch in the back. So everybody can have kind of consistent lots through this development. So with that change, I think we're pretty comfortable with this moving forward and would look to an approval tonight. Any questions?
Yes, Becky.
Where's the creepy little alleyway they're pushing to get rid of?
So this weird little remnant of lot 1 would go away and would become part of lot 3.
It would just be his backyard.
Yeah, just become the backyard of lot 3.
Okay. And is that driveway, that big flag part, the big pole, is that for more than just the one that's in the back? I mean, is it?
No,
Also
so
a driveway
that
for the
is
others?
just for this lot here.
Okay.
That is their access. It meets the fire standards to this 139 feet, less than 150. And then those switches the access off 1160 North.
Other questions for Aaron?
Yeah, so the one lot that will no longer have the weird little chunk at the end, it will still be big enough once we take that away from it?
Yeah, the nice thing with the LDR zone is it's designed and built to be an infill. So when you do a single family detached product in that zone, you only have to have 4,000 square feet.
Okay. And so with that, there was an adjustment of that northern border of the bottom lot to bring it down a little bit?
Yeah, so that south line of lots 1 and 2 will come down.
Okay.
Into lot 3, and they'll
So
kind of adjust.
It'll do this.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Just makes so much more sense than the original.
We've been saying this from the beginning, but just it's been hard to get them to show it. So
Thank you, Aaron.
Okay.
We'll look forward to talking more about this tonight as well. Will Nancy be back tonight, or will
Yes.
you present?
yes,
Okay,
that's what we.
all right. Sounds good. We'll now take a break, a 10-minute break, and reconvene at 1:20.
Recording in progress.
All right, thank you, Kevin. We'll reconvene our council meeting with the next item, which is an ordinance amending Provo City Code regarding development standards for the year 2026. So we presented by our Assistant City Engineer, David Day. Welcome, David.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Some of you have seen this in previous years. We do a yearly update of our standards for development and contractors to follow each year. It's exciting for me, probably boring for you. One year we even had a boring spec for directional boring, but not this year. So here's just the text changing numbers from 25 to 26. So that's pretty painless. Just for your information, this is all of the things that we follow code when we're approving projects in Provo. We have city specs, state specs, APWA specs, MUTCD, and on and on. So there's probably about 1,000 pages worth of stuff that kind of is reference material to help us follow the most up-to-date practice in the industry. So all I'm going to show you are the things that have changed from last year.
Yes. Such a question. So things as critical as like ADA compliance and making sure that is that addressed in all these different documents, or is there like one document that says this is the last one?
Yeah, the access board kind of governs the ADA compliance. We follow those also. They're just not on this list. So I think it's kind of implied that we follow them because it's a federal standard, but we don't actually adopt it in this standard. So yeah, we follow that.
Why don't we adopt it in the standard?
I guess we could.
I mean, we've just been getting so much pushback about how the city is not ADA compliant, and I realize a lot of that is new and our city is way old, right? But I mean, we're trying to become better, and I think if it was in code, it would be. It would signify that we're at least trying to get there.
We have to follow it no matter what, but I guess as kind of a public service, we could say, and by the way, we also follow this federal standard.
I think it's helpful.
Okay.
Maybe just a little clarification. So that standard includes things like including voice activated traffic signals, and it just goes on and on to things that we're probably not financially ready to do. So if you look at our spec books, APWA and the city specs, we pull out the things that we really want to do in terms of handicap ramps and taking care of wheelchairs. So we have the very best of those standards here. If we want to go really far into it, then we started adopting some of those other standards, but they have a much broader width and things that probably aren't going to be applicable to us right now. If we find things that the visually impaired community or others say would be good for us, then I think we'd want to bring to us, but I think we're letting that react to us as opposed to trying to go out there and find what they need. So I think that's our direction today. So I like these standards. I think we address APW. We show we show handicap for all kinds of different things. Literally, we would be doing this for trails. We have some really steep roads that we need to change how we're doing things. It's just, it's a new world that we don't want to crawl into yet.
Yeah, it's the best of our ability. We follow all the ADA standards. There is a caveat in the ADA standard that says if it's technically infeasible, you're given a pass on it. So if you're trying to do a 8% ramp going up a 12% road, then you just document, you can't change the slope of the road, and so they let you go on that. So, yeah. But in all circumstances, we follow those. Here's just a synopsis of the things that we're changing this year. 5 pages of our standard drawings were edited. They may just be a word that was changed. 1 page was added. It's our water sampling station. And I'll show you a picture of that. In our development design standards, 2 pages were edited and 1 page was added. So I'll just go to those real quick. On the left there is our water sampling station. This is the ground level, so this is too low. This is down in the ground, and this is what you would see up above. This is so we can go out at any time and sample the water for our water quality testing. We've relied on residents to go to their house and say, hey, can we get a sample? So now we're moving to a more strict standard, and we have to have these out in areas where we can get to them. We're going to put them in like parks and playground areas where there's a common area, like in a private development, stuff like that. So that's that standard. These are just changing a few words here and there on our water meter. So I don't know if you have any questions on that. This standard is a geotech fabric that didn't exist anymore, so we're making it so that they can substitute a different fabric underneath the fill material. So, I'm going to stop right there. That's the end of the regular specs. And so we were asked by the city council to bring a change to our road cross section. So currently our lowest width of road, asphalt width, is 24 feet wide. And our next width is 30 feet wide. This is asphalt width. So let me go to this next picture. So on here you can see the top picture is a 24-foot wide road. You actually have about another 1.5 feet on each side of gutter pan. So you end up with about 27 feet from curb to curb. And then the bottom road is a 30-foot asphalt width, which is essentially 33 feet. So, so we were asked to bring this to you to see if you wanted to keep the 24 or eliminate it. We took this idea to TMAC. They debated it for about an hour or so, and I think they wrote a memo, and I included that in your package, and I think they just wanted to understand it better. The planning commission voted 6-2 to eliminate the 24-foot wide roads. So that's kind of where they landed on it. Public Works, we're okay with whatever you guys decide. I think we're okay with 24. We're okay with 30. We can make them both work. There are some issues with the 24 in order to meet our safety standard to get our emergency personnel into a street. We would have to have no parking on one side of the road. So that would be a inconvenience to people that live on that road.
I do have a question, and maybe it's more for the fire chief. Do they build fire engines and ambulances narrower than the ones we currently have?
So there are ambulances that are kind of made out of a van style ambulance. There's not a lot of room to work in them that are narrower. In the United States, fire engines are pretty standard width. So ours are just like everybody else's in width. In Europe, they make them narrower, but not here.
That's good to know, because someone brought up that somewhere else, and I think it was Europe, they have them smaller. But I thought I'd ask just for the public's sake, and I might ask that again tonight, for the public's sake, that we really can't get anything smaller and have it work down these narrower streets, correct?
That's correct.
Yes, Catrice.
I did watch the planning commission on this, and the fire marshal spoke saying he would recommend getting rid of the 24-foot streets. The problem is, like, right now we haven't had the no parking, which is a problem, so we need to put the signs up. But multiple neighborhoods, unfortunately, deal with, they don't obey, right? And we can't see what everyone's doing all the time to make sure that they move that car. But just takes one baby shower or a party or some get together to have the parking not followed, and people make exceptions, and if someone can't get somewhere in emergency, that's a huge issue. It's also interesting because 3 of these were built in my neighborhood over the last year or two, like a couple years. And I talked to the developers and they actually said, I just asked them, I'm like, hey, so you bought the narrow street. So did you charge less for the lots, for the homes? Like, absolutely not. I'm gonna do whatever the market is. I'm gonna make my max money. Totally normal response. But I think we have some delusion that if a developer gets a deal, they're gonna pass it on. I don't think that's the case. I think the market is the market. Whether they have to build a 24-foot road or a 30-foot road, the house price is going to be the same. And these neighborhoods were very frustrated because they weren't told when they bought their homes that the parking was going to be off one side. And parking is already a huge issue because they're cul-de-sacs and the roads are so narrow. And so the citizens are really upset. And it doesn't matter, they're still going to have no parking. But we've learned from our emails over the years, people really care about parking.
Thank you, Catrice.
Do you want me to, I continue on, or you can add?
Yeah, I was just gonna, I wanted to address one
Go
thing.
ahead, Gordon.
So Patrice brings up a good point. So one of the things that Public Works needs to do, we have now engaged this so that before homes are built, we're having the no parking sign set up, so we don't have that issue in the future going forward. So what we're doing is making that a point right now because this is going forward. So before any building permits are issued, that will solve the problem with the construction of laborers there, as well as the people that buy the homes have the upfront knowledge of it. So we're comfortable with the 24-foot. We feel it's safe, we feel it's good. So we're not opposed to it being there, but we will make the point to get the no parking signs up before any residents show up as we go forward.
Becky?
Gordon? So these are just public streets, right? These aren't those private streets like are in Osprey Town. Or how?
Right, so this is the public street standard, correct?
So how wide do we allow those private streets to be?
So they're narrow, but they don't allow parking. So if you go into those streets, there's no parking on those streets. So what we're looking at here is the fire code says that there's a certain width that they're recommending cities allow for fire vehicles to go through. So as long as you protect that portion of all-weather surface, asphalt, concrete, or sometimes gravel, whatever the fire code says, that width is what we're trying to achieve. So you could have a smaller one and have no parking on both sides, and that would be fine too. So it would meet the fire code.
So how do we enforce that, Bill? Do we even enforce it on a private street? Can we even enforce it on a private street? And what happens if the HOA starts allowing people to park on the streets?
On the private street, I don't believe we do enforce.
So people park along those streets, it's just an HOA thing. If HOA intends to throw it away, then they still can't get a fire truck down it, and they're just still out.
Well, they can't get a fire truck down, and I think we would go after them for a fire code violation. But as far as driving down there with parking enforcement to enforce that, I don't believe we've been doing that. I think we have so many city streets we're already committed to that we're not driving through the private streets.
But we don't have a private street with.
Well, in Provo, when somebody proposes a private street, they still have to meet the public standard. So it's either 24 or it's either 30.
So those ones in Osprey townhomes, those private streets, those are all either a 24, a 30, or a.
Why don't you answer that, David?
Yeah, the public and private street standards are exactly the same.
Oh, okay. That makes it look better.
And so years before I started here at Pro, so that's a long time ago, there was a different standard, and the developers were always picking the cheaper one. So they just said, enough of that, we want to make them all the same. Because what would happen is they would build it as a private street and then say, hey, city, will you take this street from us and take care of it? It's falling apart. And we said, hey, it wasn't built to our standards, so we can't until you fix it. So that was a way to kind of make it so that all were lasting the same amount of time. I was just going to point out, this is our spec that covers that street width right now. And if we eliminated the 24, we would eliminate that. We would also eliminate some code changes in both our standards and the city code. And then I have a picture that Colby pointed out to me a problem with it. I just took a Super Duty truck and superimposed it, but he said, what if that truck parks out here a little bit more and this one parks out there a little more? Pretty soon you don't have enough room to get a fire truck through. So that's the problem and why we would need to eliminate the parking, on one side. And this is pretty tight. I would challenge anybody to be able to get 4 pickup trucks, be able to fit across the 30-foot wide road. So, but that is to scale, so you can kind of see how that looks.
So as someone who's just been living with this, like the streets around me, they've been built, so I drive on the plot. And there's been multiple times where I couldn't get through the street. And I drive a big car, but 2 big cars parked on either side and I couldn't go down the street, so I had to park and then walk down.
And even if you technically could, maybe you only have an inch, you're not going to try.
And maybe I'm just scared.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like
you're not
my
gonna-
beepers are going off. I'm like, I could
it's too close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's happened to multiple people. Multiple people don't get to their driveway, so they go park somewhere else. Like it's been chaotic, especially while people are building where they have, like a window car, a window truck in this company here, and then a plumber parked over here, and like you cannot. It's completely barricaded.
And that we see that in the new subdivisions where they're under construction. A lot of work vehicles parked.
Yeah.
There's no way you could get an emergency vehicle down.
And a lot of people drive big cars here.
I do.
Yeah.
Jeff. I have some questions. So first off, have we done an analysis on what this will cost in like a typical, like let's say 100-acre subdivision when you take into account the land, the labor, the materials, and then the opportunity cost of the lots? Like what would it add to like a typical price of a home?
So
I'm saying cost, not price. To Patrice's point, it might not
be additional 6 feet of width of road.
Yeah, in like a subdivision where you're building many roads.
Yeah, I think Gordon is looking into some of those numbers that
So the cost to the developer, we haven't really investigated their cost as much. We have an estimated cost that we bond for. That cost varies. Most developers will disagree with what we are saying the cost for roads and so forth are. I think when developers build roads, only a portion will be the 25-foot. The rest are going to be the 30-foot because they're only allowed, I think it's 400 trips per day on the 24-foot road. So it's not necessarily all roads in the subdivision.
You're gonna have a couple like through roads and then
So they'll be what we call local collectors, even though it's just a local road. It's not really a collector by specification. And so it's a little. The biggest cost to developers is probably land, and you probably yield a few less homes, depending on how big the project is. But again, it's really, you have to look at the configuration of a lot. If they're small.
Way under that.
You're the developer that did. Couldn't tell you.
Let me just add that. So the rule of thumb in city planning for a million years has been that the subdivision streets eat up 25% of the land in the subdivision. When we were doing all the west side planning, we looked at different road widths and how does that impact land development and yields. Once you start going over 30 feet of asphalt, you're now hitting 30 and 32% of the land being eaten up by roads. So that has a huge impact to the developer, which is why we get so many requests to be able to go over the 3 or 4 units to the acre, why developers were trying to do 5 and 6 units to the acre, which to make up for that loss of land that's going to roads. Okay. So we haven't run numbers for those things, but those percentages give you some idea of what I think you're getting.
And I assume the city takes on essentially the liability for the next reconstruction of the road whenever we do it, and we have like a sense of what that cost will be when we magnify it across.
Right, ongoing maintenance is the responsibility of the city, plus that for every additional foot of asphalt, it's more storm water runoff you're causing, that the city has to then maintain that system too. So it is more ongoing cost than just asphalt maintenance.
So kind of to what Bill was saying, you look at our land use and you want to be the most functional, beneficial to the public. And so generally just more asphalt isn't that. And so the narrow roads have that benefit of allowing more property, more land to be functional and of sort of productive behavior. We look at roads as kind of off limits for anything that's fun or joyful. And so the rest of the land is meant for the fun and joyful things of life. So like I said, we're supportive of the standards as they are today. We're just going to make the point to get the no parking signs up before the projects begin. So I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, no, that's helpful.
Can
I ask one more question?
And
I'm not sure who to direct this to.
Well, Bill, if it's hard, it's going to Bill. So don't even worry.
It seems to me that there is a safety trade-off, like a judgment call being proposed here. I did listen to the planning commission where perhaps the fire marshal sees it a little differently, so I'd love to hear your point of view. But to me, from all the documented research and evidence I've seen, wider streets tend to lead to faster driving. And so there is a trade-off between pedestrian risk versus the fire scenario here where there's a burning house and the car can't get through. That's essentially the trade-off being made, correct?
Well, I think we're saying it doesn't have to be a trade-off, because if we do the 24-foot and we do the no parking, the fire people are totally happy. You don't see smiles on their faces. And so I'm not saying you have to have one or the other. That's not what we're discussing here. I don't think. Okay, for the question, if Dave wants to say it differently. So when you do have more asphalt, cars do tend to go faster. That's truth? Yes. And so I'm agreeing with you. That's what you were trying to ask.
So then the real framing of the question before us is, do we want to mandate a standard that allows both parking on both sides of the street?
No, so these are both in our standards. Both of these are there. What we're saying here is, I think the question came, do we want to eliminate a standard that only allows parking on one side of the street or not? And so I think that's the question.
We're looking at getting rid of the 24-foot or not. That's the question.
Yeah, that's the question. But I do have a pushback for you. Fifth West is very narrow. That does not make the traffic slower. And everyone that lives on that road will tell you the very same thing. It does not make traffic slower. So I hear that thousands of times a day and I push back every single time. Not in my experience.
Yeah, I mean, we all have our own experiences. My parents live on a 25-foot road and it's extremely slow. I see a lot more kids out. They cross the street. I even allow my kids to cross the street to the park because it's very clearly slower than Slate Canyon Drive or my road where I live, where people will rip up that. So we all have our own anecdotal experience. That's why I referenced, there's a large body of literature that suggests more asphalt is more speed.
I'm going to say no.
Thank you, Gordon. Dave, what else? Rachel, Reese?
Also, if your concern is just asphalt, you kind of get the same amount if you have parking on one side, or if you have parking on both sides with a little bit wider. So it's kind of to me, it's like a same thing.
Dave, other,
is
that your presentation?
Happy to answer any questions or.
But we will vote on this tonight.
I think
it's in 2
weeks.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
why does it continue?
It's a different one that was continued. I guess this,
No, it's this one that was.
Is it tonight? Because if it is,
It's continued on the agenda.
So, yeah, when we talked to council or to the council staff, our impression was that it'd be better to have a work meeting than have this later as a regular item, but it could have been the same night. We didn't feel like you were ready. No, that's not true. It's not true. You were ready, but we didn't feel like we wanted you to get a chance to have questions. If you have more questions, we fully support water sampling station. We want you to adopt that. And so that's our recommendation. This one is a council decision. We support keeping the 24-foot asphalt section. We will start signing those before construction starts so that we have a better handle on it and the public isn't caught by surprise.
And so you think by installing those signs during construction, home buyers will clearly know that that's the case?
I think that's a clear notice, and it also does another thing. Catrice brings up a really solid point, is that we see a lot of construction vehicles, and by putting that up there, as much as we make fun of parking, Bill's group does a great job of getting tickets. I will tell you, they do a spectacular job of getting tickets, and we can give contractors tickets if they violate that. So they're extremely good at doing that. That's a compliment.
all right. Thank you, Gordon. Yes, Rachel.
So I hadn't spoken yet. So on some of the narrower ones, one of the concerns is that cars will park too far away from the curb and take up more space in the street. Is it helpful to have fog lines or other kind of paint on the street to indicate how far into the street they can be parking? Is that an effective mitigation?
like a shoulder stripe.
Like a
Don't
shoulder stripe,
park
Don't
any
park in the
further
corner.
out. Yes.
right?
But we haven't ever done that.
Because the only time I've seen anything close to that in the city is when we throw in a bike lane
Yeah.
that functions as that kind of thing, which wouldn't be appropriate in these narrow street profiles. Vern, do you have thoughts?
Vern Kiesler, traffic manager. Usually what we see on local streets is we don't stripe local streets. There's a couple different philosophies out there. As soon as you throw a solid double yellow line down the middle, it becomes a raceway in some people's minds. In other people's minds, it kind of demarcates the center line and people are supposed to drive slower. They don't always do that. On our collectors and our arterial streets, we do have that, even without a bike lane, we do have the shoulder striping on them.
Yeah, because I know having the center line does give people a sense when they're driving that I own this space. I don't have to worry about anybody else. I can just zip through it. And when it's more open, then people are more cautious, right? Because they realize they're sharing the space and the center ends up being flexible, which is why I was wondering if we could just delineate the parking so that the back and forth traffic would still have that flexibility. It would only work on very low volume streets, I would think.
So places sometimes you see this is they'll put like a little tick mark for parallel parking, you know. Our parking people, our painting people would hate this idea. And if they're listening to this,
I've made enemies.
you know, keeping the pipe striping up on local streets. One of the things I like about local streets by not striping them is it kind of gives me the impression of what Councilman Whitlock said, is when we stripe a street, I expect you to go to the corner to cross the street. There's no striping. You can walk, you're going to your neighbor right across the street. You don't have a sense of having to go to the corner. So once I start marking the street, telling you how to behave, it now becomes a different kind of a street to me. You could try to mark and say, don't park out beyond this mark and see if we can push it in. The problem is the fire code says we need this much room. And if everybody has a compact car, We may be able to squeeze it out on the 20-foot asphalt, but I'm thinking I'd have to go back and look. First, we have to go with standard car widths because the public's going to drive standard cars. So the 24, I think we're going to be stuck with the no parking on one side for now. We'll certainly, we have talked about this and we'll be bringing more stuff back as we get into this in more detail. But today, as new subdivisions come in, they will have no parking. So the public will know, it'll be clear. The builders will know, it'll be clear. We'll get some extra revenue off them. And then we'll move forward in that direction.
All right. Yeah,
Rachel has some more.
I did have another, so I would not be supportive of getting rid of the 24-foot option. I think having the no parking signs on one side is a good solution for that. I'm wondering if this affects standards for alleys or other things like that where it does not.
The fire guys only go up streets or generally they shouldn't go up alleys to put out the fires. They should be in the front with fire hydrants on. But I won't tell them where they can go. So and again, to your comment, we're going to start developing some things in the hillside as well. And we want to have some flexibility because we want to minimize cuts and fills. The wider you make these things, the bigger retaining walls, the bigger cuts, the more impact to the stuff. So there's reasons to think through it.
Okay. Patrice.
I'd also assume that the painting and maintenance would be expensive and time, that'd be expensive. Another thing I've heard from citizens is that they're very upset about the no parking signs.
Oh, they hate them.
They are furious.
Everywhere.
How dare you put that on my private property? And then like have a whole conversation that their park strip isn't their private property. But yeah, they are angry. So I've been getting a lot of emails about that. Mm-hmm. And people just want the parking. They're like, well, it's already a problem. Because they live in these cul-de-sacs. And they're like, there's already an issue. We want to do a baby blessing or when we have a shower or birthday party or Christmas or so parking will have to go like on these roads, parking will start having to go down Canyon Road for those kinds of events. Which it's already done, that's gonna happen, but just thinking future wise, that's not awesome.
Sure.
Yes.
Our standard for parking is 22 feet for parallel parking. We all know that is for our larger vehicles. We start striping on our local streets, the parking spaces. As Councilor McKay said, it increases our cost of maintenance and our public work guys aren't gonna be happy with us. So there's a lot of cars out there that they get more parking spaces without it being striped, okay? And no one likes to have that right in front of their house. We have done that in specialized locations, but our standard is 22 feet. So if I'm gonna go out there and put paint on it, I gotta meet my ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Thanks again, Dave. We'll deliberate this for 2 weeks. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have a resolution approving an interlocal agreement between Provo City and Utah County regarding funding for State Street trail improvements from 300 South to 900 South and authorizing the mayor to sign that agreement on behalf of the city. Presented by our traffic manager, Vern Kiesler.
Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So we have this great multi-use path that currently exists along the east side of State Street from 900 South all the way to Slate Canyon. So it's pedestrians, it's bicyclists, it's our multi-use path. And we have funding a few years back slated for this year, 2026. That's Utah County funds that we applied for through MAG. So we need an interlocal agreement. And the county commission will also on their side approve this action. And we're able to use that funds to complete the trail from 300 South down to 9th South where the new traffic signal was installed last year. We are also partnering with UDOT. You can go to the next slide, please. Oh, do I have a clicker? Thank you. Okay. So you can see that our total cost is about 1.5 million. We have a match of 6.77%, which is about 98,000. And we hope to get UDOT to partner with us. They have agreed to partner with us on the curb and gutter. Right along the curb and gutter, it's deep well. None of us like that deep well curb and gutter, right? And so we're going to have regular curb and gutter that you'll see in other locations. This is the location. It would go from the Maverick at 3rd South down to the cemetery, south of the cemetery where the new traffic signal is at 9th South. It's only on the east side of the street, and that would complete that trail and that project. That's it.
Okay, questions for Vern?
I'm just super excited about this because I've seen each of the different little pieces of this come in, and I'm so happy that they're ready to connect the dots.
Yeah, hopefully this is the easiest thing we have to vote on today.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Vern.
Agreed.
Next, we have an ordinance amending Provo City Code to require planning commissioners running for public office to take a leave of absence, presented by one of our analysts, Tanner Takuchi.
Thank you, council. Thank you, mayor and staff for being here. This is a issue item that was sponsored by Councilor McKay and seconded by Councilor Christensen. The effect of the proposed text amendment would be to require sitting planning commissioners to take a leave of absence upon filing for candidacy for public office, and then upon being elected to public office, that their seat would be automatically vacated upon getting elected. After talking with the sponsor, Councilor McKay, the basis for this is that planning commissioners, compared to other statutory boards and commissions, have a lot more public engagement. Perhaps the opportunity to use public meeting time as a platform for campaign related or campaign adjacent types of communication. This is a chart that I drew up, taking the total number of meetings recorded in the calendar year 2020-25 of different boards. You'll see at the end the city council having the most, but the neighborhood districts and planning commissions probably having the second most engagement with the public based on the amount of times that they meet in a year, and also the amount of times that their meetings are viewed on the internet. In terms of precedent for this, the neighborhood districts boards already have this rule. The proposed text amendment included in the packet, you'll see that the language lines up exactly, with the exception of substituting the word planning commission for executive board. So the question for the council to consider is just, would they like to apply the exact same standard that's already in place with the neighborhood district boards to the planning commission? And that's all I have to present. If you have any questions, I can answer anything about the data that I presented, or you can refer any other questions to the sponsors.
So Tanner, this is something that has not been in code, but it's been practiced, right? Or
as I understand, there have been planning commissioners who have voluntarily resigned, not taken a leave of absence when they've declared candidacy. That's correct.
But not only on their own volition.
That is correct, and this would make that practice a requirement.
Okay.
And we had problems with one person that was running that actually did that.
Hmm.
And so it has been recommended that we.
Okay. All right. Brian?
Chair, I just wanted to raise one additional question, sorry to make it more complicated, but when Tanner and I were talking about this, one of the things that we talked about was that in neither of the two ordinances is public office actually defined. So I read it right now as being any position that you have to be elected to. But I guess the question is that the intent, or do you only care about if it's a city office? Meaning, does it only really matter if it's mayor or city council, or if somebody's on the ballot for planning commission or county attorney? I'm not planning commission, county commission or county attorney or state representative
Or school board.
or school board. Do you also want them to step down and to recuse themselves in those cases? And so, depending on what the answer to that question is, you want to change it, I think we should change it in both places so that they're consistent.
I would say yes, But I would say PTA president or HOA president would be a no, so I mean.
Right, well, and I would interpret it to mean something that you're on the actual ballot, for, the city ballot or the state ballot, not something where, not just because somebody somewhere is doing something that they're calling voting. Something that you can only vote for if you are a registered voter in the state of Utah and it's on a ballot.
So my preference would be that, yes.
Okay.
You don't use it for a pulpit for any kind of campaign, period.
So last year, for example, a counselor ran for state legislature, so he would have to step down.
No.
Well, this is only for planning commission and neighborhood district.
Okay.
And it would be a leave of absence. In the case that they lost that election, they would be able to keep their seat.
Okay. Leave of absence.
Yeah, I suppose they could still choose to resign instead of doing a leave of absence. We can't stop them from resigning at any point.
Is that ambiguity in the existing code for the neighborhood board?
Yes. Well, so I guess to be clear, I don't think it's actually ambiguous. I just think that it's broad, and I wanted to raise the question of whether it was intended to be broad.
And do we define leave of absence anywhere else in the code? Like, is that an ambiguity?
No, but I don't think that's necessarily ambiguous. I think that just means they can't serve. They can't serve in their official role while the election is going on.
So are they replaced
No.
temporarily? So they just step back?
Well,
They should be.
Well, then what?
they wouldn't be replaced until after they lost, until
Yeah.
after they won the election and stepped down. And that's part of the reason why we changed, and Bill's not here to speak to this, but that's part of the reason why we expanded the number of planning commissioners some years ago. So they would still be able to have a quorum. It'd make it a little bit harder.
Like, I look, for example, to this last election cycle, both Adam and I were on the planning commission. We both resigned, I believe. I don't know about Adam. I know I resigned. And Bill was like, hey, if you lose, maybe you'll get reappointed, maybe not. It's up to you. That's the risk you're taking running for office. I just wonder if it's like, if 2 or 3 people from the planning commission run for office, if then we've created a problem for ourselves where we have a hard time getting a quorum consistently, because there are many times in the planning commission where there's slim margins.
Right.
So it's just something to consider, like maybe we want to push it further and just ask for resignation. I don't know. I do like the intent of what we're trying to do here. I think it's clean and it keeps the integrity of the planning commission to be non-political, which I think is important. So.
Well, I will push back and say that Bill has told me before that he would like the opportunity to have them back. So there is that. And I think that he's got a pretty good handle on his commissioners.
Well, and on top of that, I would say, it is an administrative side body, which they have some control over. So in that worst case scenario, if there's really a problem, Bill and or the mayor can always go to some of them and say,
Will you
please
resign?
step down. And technically mayor could even, if the person says no, mayor could just remove them. Right. So it could get fixed if that worst case scenario was happening.
All right. Thank you, Tanner. Appreciate your work on this. We'll now take a 10-minute recess and
Don't we need a
reconvene
motion on
at 2:15.
So, yeah, so backing up one step before I answer that. So this was a council initiated item, so it doesn't automatically move forward. Council putting it on the tracker brings it to this meeting, and then a motion is required to do something with it. So if no motion is made, the item will just die.
Yeah.
It'll never come back. Yeah. So the options are make no motion, make a motion to advance it as is. And in that case, then my interpretation, it means if a planning commissioner and a neighborhood district chair
Run for president of the United States.
run for any elected office, formally elected office, then they must take a leave of absence during the pendency of the campaign. So you can move to advance it as is, or you could make a motion to change any of the elements of it.
Okay. So
I would make a motion to move it forward as is.
All right.
I would second that.
We have a motion by Counselor Christensen with a second by Counselor Bogdan. Any discussion? All right, let's take a vote. Counselor Christensen,
Yes.
Counselor Whitlock,
Yes.
Counselor Bogdan,
Yes.
Counselor Garrett, yes, Counselor Whipple,
Yes.
Counselor McKay.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0 in favor of moving the motion forward with Counselor Hoban excused. Now we'll continue with the next item, which is a discussion regarding our fiscal year 27 priority setting. Staff, specifically Justin and the policy analysts, have taken a chance basically to review everything we talked about last week and summarize, make an attempt to summarize and bring some clarity. So this is a chance for us to view what we talked about and see if we'd like to make any changes. Justin.
All right, thanks, Counselor Garrett. If you don't mind, I'm gonna sit here so I can type. Thanks for kind of framing that and setting it up. This, Kevin's gonna bring up on the screen, kind of these draft FY 27 budget priorities that were sent out to the council, last week. Council staff got together after the priorities meeting to review our notes as well as the minutes and try to put these priorities that were expressed by the council into a little more shape or contour, and then get your feedback. There's been some feedback from council members, but wanted to spend some time today to make sure we're on the right track and see if we can continue to narrow these a little more and drill down a little deeper. So the 3 priority areas included home ownership, economic development, and code enforcement. If you don't mind, I'm going to jump to the second one, economic development, as we felt that had the most explicit budget priority that was expressed by the council. And so what we've done is given those high level categories and then tried to express an explicit budget priority and then have some general questions or kind of feedback to drill down to during this meeting. And so what we had heard as staff was a budget priority for FY 27 in economic development would be to fund an economic development strategic plan for Provo City. Included here, the link to chapter 5 of the general plan, which is the economic development chapter that really is kind of this high level overarching assessment of the city and kind of the assets that are available, some of the different areas or locations that could benefit from economic development, as well as just kind of what is currently happening in the city.
And which was included in our packet today.
Correct. And we can bring that up if needed. Subsequently met with, I'll give some big kudos to development services because they took the brunt of all of this. Met with Bill Pepperoni as well as Cody, Caitlin, and Melissa from economic development and the RDA to get their feedback, as was mentioned by council members. And really kind of looked at this from 2 perspectives of, is this something that needs citywide analysis of kind of broader scope? Where would an economic development plan be best served citywide? Or would it be best to target a certain area? And there were a few areas that were mentioned, including downtown, West Provo, as well as East Bay. In meeting with development services and economic development, I don't want to put words in their mouth, they're here, but their recommendation was the more specificity, the better. So choosing an area. Go ahead, Councilor.
Just unclear. I thought we were really clear about that. And so I'm surprised you're even asking. And perhaps we weren't clear. We don't want to go an inch deep and a mile wide.
Yep.
So a mile deep on just a few critical issues, and that'd be downtown, West Provo, and East Bay. That's what I was hearing.
Yep.
And that's exactly why we're doing this, Craig. We want to make sure that what we said is represented in this summary document. Yeah.
But I too wanted make my intention clear, and I think I did that in an email, but to economic development. East Bay already has some sort of, what is it? Is it sales tax increment or something on it? And we're really not getting the best stuff there. And for years, I've heard the reason why the mall in East Bay is suffering is because it's on the outskirts of the city. And in years past, we've had people coming from like Price, Emory counties, Santa Quin, Payson. And now that Spanish Fork is so built out, people only have to go to Spanish. They don't have to come here. And the poverty level of the areas around it can't support a whole lot there. So I'm just wondering if, even with the mall wants to go smaller, not bigger. And so I'm just wondering, what is the best use for that? Because obviously retail is dying. Is it even worth putting any money into it? And what would be the best highest use for something like that?
That's what the study would be.
Could you repeat that, Catrice?
That's what the study would be.
Oh.
That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that they're not seeing this as let's revitalize East Bay. Let's really look at, is it even worth putting money into? Is West Provo, we're out on the outskirts of the city, are we going to get the results that the residents want, or is it just going to be money that we're throwing in to make something survive, right? Or is it better that things go downtown because that's more centrally located?
Yes, I didn't take you off track.
Nope, you're right.
You're just clarifying that's what you
Yep.
said. All right.
Correct. So with that, one of the other questions that was posed was, is this something that can be done internally, or is it something that needs to be done externally? And the feedback from economic development was, we can do as much as possible and see if there's a need to go external. They feel they've got sufficient resources to dive deep into, depending on what the council wants to do, is it just one of these locations? And is there appetite for doing one this fiscal year, one the subsequent fiscal year, or do we want to take on three? I think that's where we kind of need direction from the council. Is this 3 areas? Is it just one? And we want to use the resources that we have internally with economic development, so that there's not as much need for budget allocation for the plan, but perhaps more that can be allocated for the actual implementation of whatever that plan is. So that's where we're looking for a little clarity from the council.
Well, I would think implementation, there's no way that can happen this year. Right? I mean, the state's gonna take a year. And I would think we want it all integrated, like East Bay is still relevant to downtown, West Side, obviously some of it isn't, but some of it is, as you get to the stuff around the interchange, the Walmart area or whatever. But, so yeah, knowing those areas in conjunction with the other, I think the whole bigger picture is better. It's gonna take doing all this to implement, I think, to get a really robust plan, but I'm not an expert on that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Bill not him.
I agree with what you said, Catrice, and I think so +1 to that, but I also think that, like, for example, an upcoming item illustrates this point is, at least from my perspective, like geography is one cut or one dimension to look at, but then there's also like thematic and industry thematics. Like, for example, we have this life science theme. Is that something that we want to prioritize? Or we have a burgeoning SaaS industry, we have a startup industry, we have an airport, which could then fuel tourism or other types of industries. So there's geography, which I think really matters, but then I think layering geography over industry is kind of like what I was hoping to see, and kind of taking a bird's eye view of that, and then having it like a vision for how it all stitches together instead of just doing a bunch of piecemeal area plans. The one potential counterexample I would state that is Center Street because of the time constraints around the Olympics. But those are my thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Craig.
I too, the planning is the easy part. It's the implementation that's the real challenge. So I like the idea of doing all the planning and we do some very thorough planning this year. I think you make a really good point that we take a look at verticals as well, not just geography. And then we double down on a few. But it's hard to do that without knowing what the trade-offs are. And it might be life sciences. As much as we love East Bay, or as much as we love the weather, we might go, oh my goodness, this is like an unlocker. We have no idea. So I like the idea of a robust planning approach. If we've got the city staff to do it, I don't question that at all. And I would love to bring in outside expertise so we can move faster and be more comprehensive and also be best in class. Again, maybe we can do that all internally. That would be great. But I would like to see us do that and like be done by July, June. And then then spend the rest of the year actually prioritizing and figuring out where we go from here. Well, even without the budget, there's so much to learn. And even deciding what it's going to be, by the time the budget does start in the fall, it'd just be all lined up. But the implementation is it. It's not the planning. It's not having a really cool plan. It's not having a comprehensive plan. It's then deciding which 2 or 3. That's all you get.
Follow through.
Yeah, it's that follow through. So I'd love to see some urgency on the plan, have it be as robust as possible. If that means outside resources, I'd be willing to allocate money for it. And again, if we've got the bandwidth and the talent internally, we don't need that. Okay, then we don't need it. But I would love to see a robust plan, and then the really hard choices about where do we invest, and that would then be another chunk of time as we take a look at trade-offs.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Becky?
We are being asked to look at already some CRAs, right? We have some for us, and I would love this information before we have to make decisions like this. So I'm with Craig, the sooner we get it, the better, because it helps when these things come before us to say a hard yes or a hard no, because we have more facts towards what we're doing, instead of just going, oh, yeah.
Okay. Anyone else on this item, on this priority, economic development?
Yeah, because
Rachel?
I think we need to have a clear economic plan for the city. Like, we haven't really had that as an RDA, and this would be very, very useful. And then I want a very clear and actionable plan for like the downtown area as we're getting ready for the Olympics and other things. So that's why I think it's useful to have the big visioning overall goal and then do the specific ones, almost like having the general plan and the neighborhood plans that are then integrated and like more filled out on that. And so I think my priority would to have that citywide analysis and like the downtown with the future areas being filled out more fully later. Just so that we've got this prioritization so that we can start implementing the most urgent ones. But I think we need, the general analysis and then the detailed treatment.
Rachel, just to clarify, so what are you proposing essentially doing appropriation for, I guess there's a question whether or not we go external, but assuming we get an external firm to help us with this, for an economic citywide plan, which would then be a guiding document for potentially some of those area specific plans, but for Center Street specific, appropriating money for a plan to that so we can get ahead of the Olympics.
Yeah, and I think for Center Street, that's probably going to be one where we may need to do a lot of public engagements on that. Whereas for the more wider one, I don't know if we want more expert information instead of public engagement and stakeholder. I think we want more of the stakeholders when we're getting to the specific things. I don't know if that's right, but that's my instinct.
Well, I mean, to your point, and again, I'm riffing here, but the type of things that I think that broader plan would look at would be like our strengths relative to other cities regionally, others or sort of locally, regionally, macro economic development trends, specific, like, so it's looking at a lot of other data points, I would imagine. for that vertical theme. Whereas,
Yeah, and it seems that our economic development team is probably well situated to do that. If they're already bringing us this life sciences proposal, they're thinking about some of these things. And I think if we work with them to create a plan, then they'll have a sense of our priorities and we'll have a sense of what is useful in the market and like where we can really shine and do that investment. So to have those collaborative discussions with them where we really learn more about the larger economic picture and how we can grow in it, I think will be really useful. If they say that they want to bring in outside people to meet the timelines or something, that's fine. But I have pretty good confidence in our economic development team that we have right now.
I don't think it has to do with the confidence, I think it has to do with time.
Yeah.
well, and sometimes external perspectives, like if there are firms that do this for other cities, they like sometimes pattern recognition is quite helpful across multiple samples.
Yeah. Yeah, and our team is relatively new, so they're still kind of fresh to the city, and so they're still bringing in that kind of outside expertise and perspectives, which I think we should absolutely use in this circumstance.
Agreed. I also think, we're not even get to the river corridors till next quarter.
Yeah.
You know, and we talked about that last quarter, and so, this also can't wait. To me, like this is one of the big ones. We need to act now. So if we've got the bandwidth, then let's be really clear what that is. I also really like the idea, and I would agree, an outside perspective is so helpful. Let's not do a homegrown like best in Utah County approach. Let's actually like think best in class. Like if we were going to be stellar at like one or two or three things, what are those one or two or three things? And let's go down on, let's get that. So again, it's not any kind of judgment about do we have the talent or not. There is a role to play for outside people to poke you in the eye and say, you think you're all that in a bag of shit. You're not. Here's what you need to be looking at. And they might say something like, oh my goodness, you've got your own airport. Why aren't you connected? And you know, we missed that. So I strongly encourage us to think in terms of outside perspective. I don't know how much they should be doing of the report, but I want validation that this is like best in class. And like now, we really don't have more time. We got to get going now.
And to share perspective on this, like I think when I look at Provo, I see the beginnings of a lot of potential bets that you could double down on and become world-class at. But I think the risk is that you kind of say, we have all these strengths and we just kind of put a little bit of chips behind each. And then you don't really get like the momentum that comes from the compounding of investing in something really deep. Like I look at some examples of other cities, like, and you could argue these are good or bad examples, but like Mesa, Arizona and Scottsdale, they had like a little burgeoning doing spring training in their things, and they said, we're going to go all behind this. We're going to become the world-class destination for spring training, and then they put a bunch of resources behind it, and that was their economic development strategy for, like, they spent a lot of time behind it. They have these really nice parks that people come to, and they fly in the spring, and they have hotels for them, and so there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen. Another example is I lived in Houston. Houston was a boom and bust city because of the oil cycles. And so they said, we're going to be the best medical center in the world. And so they did a very large, long-term economic planning and development cycle where they built out a really large medical campus with many, many hospitals around Baylor Medical School. So anyway,
they probably drove a lot of decisions. They probably drove infrastructure decisions and
drove a lot for a decade or more.
Housing and
yeah. And so anyway, that's just to put, I think sometimes examples are helpful, but just throw out a couple.
Yeah.
Is that helpful, Justin, on that priority?
Well, almost the question is, would we want to do an appropriation for this before we even get into the budget season with the urgency that Craig is talking about? And for that, we would need to know how much such a thing would cost.
Yeah, and so part of what would be helpful to me is to know what the options are. Like, how much does that cost? We're talking 100 grand, 10 grand. Are we talking, I have no big idea of how big that is. The other thing that'd be helpful, I think, in terms of just expediting this would be frequent discussion about this. So that you're not off trying to figure out things on your own. Let me just speak for myself. I want to make a difference in this city. That's why I'm sitting in this chair. I want to make a difference, and just painting things here and there isn't going to do it. Let's build something. And so I haven't felt like there's an opportunity. I think we've done some good things in RDA. I think the city's done some good things to RDA in the past. Got the Olympics. I just think like this is the perfect point, and we don't have much time. So I think it's a mistake to think, oh, the next several months, let's study it. No, this week, let's study it. Make a recommendation next week, and let's vote on it the next. Let's do that. You know what I mean? So I would encourage us to have a bias for action, because this is our window. I don't feel strongly about it. I'm just saying.
I hate to see when you do feel strongly about something.
So, little clarification. I heard one thing and then I feel like I heard the other on specific geographic areas and then identifying specific geographic areas. Is there more of an appetite to choose those areas as a body and say, we want to drill deep here? Or do we want someone else to come in and say, you're way off base. Why are you looking here? You should be looking at this.
Yeah, here's what, if we had an outside firm come in, first thing they would do is they would never say, great, so downtown West Provo, first thing they would do is they'd say, let's take a look first. You guys might be myopic. First thing they would do. And then they would say, I think you got two of them right and you're missing a third. That's the kind of guidance we need. So again, incremental, like let's develop this as we go, because I don't think we have a clue as to whether those are the right bets. With a little bit of digging and some research, I think we can figure out. Then all the discussion goes to how do we make that happen.
And Justin, to respond to your question, maybe we need to do a straw poll or something to get a pulse of the body. But I think Rachel put forward somewhat of a pseudo hybrid proposal where it's like we need to get started on Center Street so that Bill's team has the money, because I think I'm going to insert two of my assumptions here. One assumption is that we would like to have something in place by the Olympics. The other assumption is that whatever the vertical or industry specific strategy we come up with is probably not going to dramatically change Center Street. We kind of know what Center Street is. It's a old historical retail based thing, whereas other parts of the city will have potentially more variability in what they could become based on the investments. So I think that was a motion or a pseudo kind of proposal.
It wasn't a motion.
Sorry, I'm learning the language.
Those have a specific shape.
Yeah, I understand. I misspoke.
So I would push back and say no for the downtown, because like you said, it's very myopic. That's very passion driven by a certain amount of people. Let's just do broad. If we're gonna go and we're gonna figure out where our blinders are, let's go on in there. And if downtown's one of the things that they say is amazing, then we can do that. If not, then we need to move forward with something different.
They might say life science and sports parks.
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
And then we know West Side and life science places, which would be around the hospital and right, the warehouse districts. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good, Justin. And relative to funding, I think we can look and see what resources we have in-house, but there appears to be a willingness to appropriate funds for outside influence as well, outside planning and help. But broad for now until we can.
Well, I'd just be curious if the mayor, do you have any thoughts on this? I mean, and I'm sorry if I missed, because I missed the beginning of this conversation. So
what we're doing here, Travis, is reviewing.
Yeah, I think I'm up to speed of where we're at and trying to decide exactly what we want to make a motion on. But I was just curious if the mayor had any input on like overall vision, or economic development or areas. Just curious if you have thoughts.
Yeah, I probably have a lot of thoughts, but,
I'm gonna help you with this mic. It's touchy. That's the, yeah,
I
there you
get
go.
it. I just need someone to come
Yeah.
help me.
My mere presence.
Yes, but I also am kind of an impatient person. I really like the idea of trying to get things nailed down quickly and not go too slow. And so I really appreciate that. I really like this plan of looking at the whole state and seeing where and what we can do to really do something transformational. I would like to hear from my staff also and get their ideas and their bandwidth and their, I don't know, I've been on this a week. So, but I have been thinking about it.
I know I'm
for a
putting you
long
on the
time.
spot.
No, I've been thinking about it for a long time. And so, yeah, I think that with that whole citywide plan, we will find that some of these things are probably really important, right? Downtown's really important, East Bay's really important, like things like that. But I would love to get some outside or inside track on when you look at the whole thing, what do we see? I think that's.
Yeah, it kind of seems like we're talking like macro long term, but then at the same time, I think we all know we want a vital downtown too, right? Like nobody would say like,
Right.
that's got to be part of the plan. So is there something we could do today that, but while we pursue a long term? Because I'm agreeing with you. I like the idea of somebody zooming out and saying, "Hold on, you like, no, don't try to make Standard Street a pedestrian, avenue right now. Like, you're not going to be downtown Boulder or whatever, right? But are there things we can do that aren't so big right now that we could pursue? Because if it's going to take us a year to get results back from some outside firm, that is kind of, we lose a year of focus on this. I don't know. It's almost like we got to pursue the long term while at the same time figuring out what we can do right now in the short term.
Yes, and I wouldn't say it's like we're losing a year. If we're doing it right, we're building the entire year. We're building consensus with the communities. We're building budgeting priorities with the council. We're working with the administration to align, priorities. So I'm not thinking analysis.
You don't want to panic right now, short term.
No, that's why I say, no, let's get the study done in the next 90 days. 90 days, go. And we're on. And even in that 90 days, we're constantly checking in on the trade-offs we made, because there's constant trade-offs. So I wasn't thinking a year to analyze. I was thinking more like 90 days.
Yeah, 3-month study.
Yeah, 3-month study. And then
I guess I was just thinking through like procurement process, RFP and procurement process, contract negotiations. I don't know, it just seems like these things take a long time. I mean, there are some studies that we commission that have taken us 12 to 18 months, right, to get anything back. So
let's not do that. My mom would always say, it's just logistics.
Okay, so then maybe the first answer is, how quickly can something like this materialize? And then that might guide us in our decision making.
Yes.
So Justin, we will leave this with you to interact with city staff and see to what extent we and how quickly we need to go outside, or what resources they feel we have internally to take the next step. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think my staff can find the sub funds to do this.
They would find this one?
If they could find the funds.
Oh,
I think we can look for the funds to get this done
Love that.
ASAP.
okay.
Love that.
And I don't think it's worth ever spending money for doing things before we have information. Like, I can't even decide on the Walmart or whatever information. Like, we need more information.
Yeah, no, I wasn't saying make big decisions without it, but.
Just want to put some flowers.
Well, if Justin comes back and says this is going to be an 18-month process, I think we are going to have to determine some things that we can do right now to continue to strengthen downtown. And so I don't know. Yeah. Timeline and budget would be probably the first two things, I guess. I'm jumping in here late, so sorry, but that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Travis. Justin, let's move to our next, the 3 priorities then. Did you want to do code enforcement or,
Either way, let me see one more thing, if this sounds right. So fund the development of a citywide economic development strategic plan that clearly identifies priority investment areas and target industries to maximize return on investment for Provo City. Does that sound like
Isn't it supposed to be downtown West Side and East Bay?
No, we want somebody to come in and tell us if that's where we need to focus. So they're gonna explore downtown and then help us focus.
There was, if I'm just reading people's comments, it did seem like there was some disagreement that is forming around Center Street. I'm like, should we fund the Center Street study so that we can make sure we have it in place for, but I think it's a very long time to get it actually to be done for the Olympics. Like, for example, I met with Quinn, for example, and that's his the number one ask of Downtown Provo Week is like, we really need to make sure we get ahead of this but Becky's pushback, which is fair, which is like, maybe that's being too myopic. Let's wait until we, do the.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Mayor.
So yeah, I think downtown is really important. I think it's important for the Olympics, but it's also needs to be part of a larger plan if we're looking forward to the Olympics of transportation and like the airport and everything else. So I think this idea of looking at everything and saying even a timeline of what needs to be done first, or how do the pieces fit together and where is it good to work at it. I don't know if I'm misinterpreting what you're looking at. It's not just for the Olympics, it's for sustainability ongoing into the future. But how do we do that in all the right ways and fit all the puzzle pieces of the Olympics together too?
Yeah,
I hear way more about Provo than the Olympics.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, the Olympics isn't my mark. That's just a good thing to like, let's be cool for the Olympics.
Yeah.
Right.
I could care less about the Olympics.
Okay.
And I also would not want to get too expansive and let's look at I don't want to look at everything. I actually want to be very myopic and I want to look at economic development in terms of those things. Now, will they have a ripple effect? Absolutely. So our biggest challenge is going to be saying no, because we want to do everything. So I would
Make a motion.
jealously say, let's be very focused in terms of what we're choosing to take on. I'm not sure I would go that broad.
Okay, I'm happy to do whatever you want to do. Just explain it to me.
I think your push, Craig, which is actually, let's get this done before the next budget cycle.
Yes.
So if there is appropriations needed for some of these area specific plans, we can actually make that decision.
Well,
right? Is that how we square that circle?
Yes, and when we say get this done, it's not the study. That's the easy part. We have stakeholders, we have communities we need to involve. We've got best ideas. We need more discussion here. The administration's got all kinds of things to do. So I'm not thinking like in a year we've got a plan, but we've actually got everything lined up to execute. And that's a big difference. So like a 12-month study, I think is way off track. And that's what that sounds like when I hear you say.
No. What I was saying is a 3-month study is completed before the budget is completed, so that we can take the output of that study and say, these are the things we need to double click on.
Yeah.
And if we need any additional appropriation for outside help on the double clicks, that's what
I need some clarity though. You said you want to be myopic and you want to get very detailed on these things. What were you pointing at?
I was pointing at the economic development. What I don't want to do is to look at every single plan that connects into that. And before you know it, we're so macro, we've got so many different things. So I was saying myopic in terms of
just economic development.
No.
Scoped to that.
No Olympics, no downtown, just the economic development and see where the best places are, because the Olympics is gonna come and go.
I figure the Olympics is like company coming over so you
It
clean up your
is,
house.
yeah.
It is a really good impetus to get stuff done that maybe you've been putting off for a while. They've got value to us.
All right, Justin.
Follow up with economic development.
Yes.
Timeline and cost. All right, we'll jump up to home ownership.
Okay.
So again, went through notes and minutes and tried to just consolidate the thoughts and questions into an actionable budget priority. Again, there seemed to be consensus around funding a housing audit or housing study. What we had talked about internally, staff, is this housing audit could be an appendix to the general plan so that it becomes something that came up a number of times of allowing us to have data that would put the council in a place to set benchmarks and milestones. To me, it was much more collecting that data in order to make goals rather than so much a goal in and of itself, and just wanted to make sure that was where everyone was at. Spoke to Bill about this at length, and kind of talked about the different information that could be included. These were just kind of some brainstorming activities. A lot of it being information that the city has that could be updated regularly, as opposed to some data that might be really costly to try to acquire by going door to door and trying to update that and having it be out of date by the time we got it. So things that we point to quite often, like home ownership percentage. What does that look like, including and not including students? Also, we throw that number around quite often without knowing the source of where that's from. But also perhaps being able to break that down by neighborhood, so that when items do come before the council, again, going back to setting those goals or benchmarks, when a development comes forward, you can look and see, this is what owner occupancy looks like in these neighborhoods and what is needed. And again, kind of getting into more details, what does housing inventory or stock look like in those neighborhoods?
Justin, I'm going to push back a little bit here.
Yep.
Every time something from the west side comes up, it says it's 98% home owner occupied. That is not the case. And that drives me crazy every single time. Not everybody is going to get a rental dwelling license. I have just, in my neighborhood, I can tell you more than 98%, less than 98% that's homeowner occupied, a lot more rentals there. So I really have a hard time with saying, okay, let's just go ahead and do whatever development services has, because that information is not necessarily accurate. We're already not giving great numbers every time I see these things in reports.
Yeah. And some of that information, I'll push back a little, we're never going to have 100% correct information. I would doubt we would have 80% correct information on some of that, because it's solely reliant on those that are applying for those licenses, to at least how we currently issue rental dwelling licenses, to be able to show that. I think using data perhaps from, and we'll jump into this in the next one, the data scraping software that Development Services is trying to acquire, using data from county records. I mean, we can only make so many assumptions there. I know we've looked at trying to pull county information and matching, property address with mailing address. That's going to get us a better quality data than we currently have based off of RDLs, but it's also not going to be completely accurate. Then you've got some people that do have, they're going to have a home in a trust or an LLC, and it's sent to a different address, and they may occupy that as the owner. So I think just improving the level or quality of the data that we have through, some of it's going to be internal, and I think some of that's more like, what entitlements do we have, how many building permits have been pulled. That's going to tell us more of, on the entitlement side, what has the city done in order to increase housing stock. Developers are going to push back on the other side and say it's building permits, but I'm going to say that's their fault, because they've got to start building in order to have those issued. So I think there's a lot of different data that could go into this that would be helpful in that benchmarking and milestone side, but wanted to get thoughts from you all.
Trish?
After we had this discussion about priorities, I had a citizen from downtown call me, and they were like, he's like, you guys always talk so much about needing more low-income housing or cheaper housing. And he's like, we desperately he said there was some study that Javin Weaver did at some point, and that we have a huge shortage. So he's like, we have the most low-income housing in the whole county and the least high-end housing. Yep. And the least 4+ bedroom housing. Like, there's all these stats that we ignore, thinking it's always the cheaper, when he's like, when you have the higher end stuff or the 4+ bedrooms, people move up and it opens up stock. And then we also have the other issue of, what did he mention? How keeping investors out and how to manage that. But like, he mentioned some study by Javin Weaver that I wasn't aware of.
Okay. Yeah, I think all those
the details of what you want in there, we can adjust and throw as much or as little as you want in there. But more than anything, wanted to get an idea, are we close to the target on?
Is this the
on
reduction?
Yes.
Yes, go.
Okay. Gone. Perfect. That was
Okay.
easier than I
That
thought.
one was easy.
You get the best. All right.
One more.
Last was code enforcement. And really, there was a lot of discussion here. We kind of broke these into two buckets of resources and staffing. Staffing you could throw in as a resource, but we kind of put this in these two buckets of human capital versus maybe it's technology, maybe it's data, maybe it's process improvement. And one thing that perhaps could be a budget priority on the resource side is kind of the idea of business process reengineering. So there are a lot of steps in a lot of these different licenses that go through customer service and development services or code enforcement. And we're limited in that quality of data based off of those business processes. So either internally or externally having someone come in and you can call it audit or give a program evaluation of that business process to make sure we're capturing A, the data that we want, and B, that it's reflecting the steps we want to take in those different renewal processes, how we're tracking this data, who's tracking it, and just what does that business process look like between departments that overlap in this issuing of license. Was kind of that a first stab at, is this a worthy budget goal? Because I think that would inform, does the current software that's used by these departments, is that sufficient? Do they need something based off of a need to change business processes? There were some specific questions you all asked and that we followed up with development services on, as far as what resources would code enforcement need to do a 6-month follow-up on every case. That was a very specific question. As well as, what resources would they need to track every report on each property? These different things that would require the creation of a business process, but also an ability to track that information. So I will stop talking there and see if there's any thoughts or feedback before we jump to the staffing bucket.
I think one big thing is, I think everyone would understand more if the follow-up was more clear. And I do believe that code enforcement directly will talk to the person who complained about it. Do you always talk, always, or is it just because I know you get the notice still. You get the notice on the software, it just says done. And then these neighbors are looking, seeing that the issue's not done next to them. And they get so frustrated. And so I think even just having our software, one step would be to have our software updated such that it gave a detailed thing. This went to court, or this is going to go to court, but it'll take about 6 months, details on there on the follow-up.
Yeah, so I'm having myself look into the ability to update the quality of information in that update that's automatically sent through the system. I'll follow up to see where that is. They're working with IS to find out what it would take to get that updated, and how much information we can get automated through that, or at least to your point, just have maybe a standard paragraph. If it's this, if we're moving to this step, this is what it means. Just so there's that clear. We want to make sure citizens understand, especially with these reports or these updates, that
they feel heard.
Actually, this is what's going on. This is what it means when we say, oh, it got sent to legal. Well, that means that this is the next step in the process. And to answer the other question you had, yes, staff has been directed to reach out to the complainants when the case is done, to let them know, here's what I found out, here's how it got resolved, or
where things ended up. Let me know if we're missing something.
Cool. Like, I would love to be able to look at a problem property like 751 Stadium and know why it goes on so long and why it still is a problem. Like, so then we can, like, maybe we take a few of these that are chronic issues and diagnose what the problem is and find some solutions from those case studies. I don't know.
Yeah, and to follow up with some of what Catrice mentioned, you know, when I put in a complaint, report an issue, I'll get back that it's been passed on to a department or whatever, and then it's closed. And even I've gotten ones where it's like, do you want to give a message saying thank you? And you can't, because once it's closed, you can't do any more messages on that same item. And so by closing it off, it makes it so that through the app, you can't communicate any longer with the city on it, right? Because it would be nice if, you know, through that little thread with the comments that you could continue to say, but wait, what about this? But once it's closed, no more comments on that same item. So you'd have to do a new report on it. And that may just be a software issue on 311.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So part of the possible re-engineering of the actual process
would be software.
And I will say that that app and the way to report it is so much better than it was before.
Yes, it is.
Like so much better. So this is a minor complaint, but it's just another way that it could be improved.
Is there a way that you can lodge a complaint without having to get an account?
Yes.
Other than calling 311?
Yes, you just don't get
Yes.
follow up. Like, you don't get the.
So they can do it as a guest? Because I don't use it, but I had someone tell me that they tried to report one online and they had to set up the whole account thing, and that just turned them off. So they wouldn't, so then they come to the city councilor. So I think
It's so much easier.
well, I just think it would be more helpful if they could do something without setting up an account, and just so that they know that if you set up the account, you know, maybe a disclaimer, if you set up the account, then you get the tracking. If you don't set up the account, then that's your choice of not getting.
What
I
it
think
is.
that's what it is.
Is there a disclaimer on there? Cause
I don't know about.
Yeah.
my guy he just turned it over to the city councilor because he didn't want to turn something in and get an account.
So I'm gonna make an assumption that we're talking about the C-flip fix
Yes.
complaint system. I'm not an expert in any way, shape or form on that. That's handled through customer service, so I don't know on that. If someone is complaining or submitting a complaint through the portal system, which goes directly into our ERP system, I know they do have to have an account set up of some sort to be able to do that. I'm not sure.
Well, it's the online, it was the online thing, so.
Well, both are
Not
done
enough.
online. You can,
Are you, is it?
so there's
It must be the
the
portal that,
portal, provo.org/portal, where you apply for any permits, you can submit complaints, there's all sorts of things you can do through that.
so why do we have two different
And then
versions?
C-click fix. I don't know that I can speak intelligently as to why there's two different.
Marcia, that's my question. Why are there two different versions? Why not just one?
I will find out.
I can speak partially to the historically, what was before C-click fix was intended just for people essentially to say, hey, city, there's a light out, will you go fix it? Things like that, where it's just, I need to notify somebody in the city that there's an issue that needs to be addressed that we don't need any feedback from. And I know a lot of people would submit code complaints and want to have feedback. Then they would be like what Council Ripple is having an issue with, where it's, well, I submitted this complaint to the city through C-click fix, and then it said it got transferred to another department, and now that's closed. So now with it being with another department, it's in another system now, and that's been the same thing with the previous system. Sounds like it's the same concern with C-click fix. My suggestion typically when I talk to people about best ways to submit a complaint is go through the portal system if it's a code enforcement concern.
So Justin, it seems like your summary and outline of the resources portion of this priority is complete and accurate. Did you want to discuss staffing as well?
Yeah, so real quickly, I know over the last
2 years, there's been a lot of discussion amongst the council on reactive versus proactive enforcement, as well as among citizens. And one potential thought was funding of any supplemental requests or needs. Some of the things we've thought about were funding for additional hours for code enforcement outside of the 410 schedule. Some of these complaints come mostly on the weekends where you've got specific things like short-term rentals, where that's when most of those violations are happening. Or even additional hours or days. So after 6 p.m. or Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, where you get maybe a different variety of complaints or an inability to follow up just due to staffing schedules.
I think they definitely need more. I think they definitely need more staff, but I also don't want to tell them how to do it. So I'd like to know but no, they don't tell us you need staff, we're just going to give you staff. Because I do think they need more help. It's just overall, right? Like between, we've asked you to do so many things, like doing the enforcement and doing different stuff with permitting and licenses and development stuff to go fast. Like it's just a lot in development services, and I worry about them. They haven't asked for supplements in a long time, so. Sure.
So that could all be explored as part of this then.
Perfect.
And
We'll continue to follow up with.
I like the Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing because honestly, if you're gonna catch somebody at home, that's probably the time you're gonna catch them. Or outside of the 410 schedule.
Perfect. All right. I'll ask one more time. Everyone feel decent.
Does this represent your?
Yes.
Should we do a straw poll? That we want to do, Gary?
I'm sorry.
I have just like a process question.
Mm-hmm.
So under resources, a lot of these are kind of framed as questions, not like we are going to appropriate money to, or we're going to encourage the mayor to include this in our budget. Are these questions that council staff is going to ask with administrative staff and get answers to, which then we are going to circle back and then?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And I want to put my 2 bits in that I like the practice. Like I love the blitz that was done. You guys did it. I think that was very effective.
Yeah.
And I think if people know they can't get away with stuff, it's just going to they are going to behave better. You don't want to be known as a place that investors can easily take advantage. So I'd like to get that word out.
It made a difference, didn't it? That blitz. Now I know of some situations that were clarified.
Sorry, I didn't cut you off.
Go ahead.
I still feel like it's unclear to me what success is. I think it's important whenever you set an objective to have, how do you know that you were successful, or how do you know if you made progress relative to what, so that it builds in an opportunity to improve, to reflect, and to learn. I look at this and I'm still not quite sure if we have this meeting next year and say we had this priority, did we make progress on it? That's my one. I think this is all great. That's just my one push.
Okay, so maybe including some measures for success, Justin, would be recommended as well.
Do you have that?
Yeah. All right, Craig.
Sorry. I feel like we're talking about things that will be helpful and will be constructive. And I feel like what we're not talking about is being like wildly creative about new ideas. We spent the whole year last year talking about, and I know we're finally going out to RFP and that took an entire year. And I think that's a little portion of what needs to be done. I'm not convinced that we are bringing the focus to it in terms of leadership that needs. And it may go far beyond just one person. Again, I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm just saying, I don't think we're bringing the focus to it that it deserves. And I'm not sure we've got the right teams working on it. I'm not convinced of any of that. Everything we're talking about is at the margins. Without enforcement, everything else we're talking about in terms of guidelines and ordinances and to your point, no one does that stuff. That's just not acceptable, and we've got to be more creative. I'm not convinced we're even close to where we need to be in terms of creative solutions. And I don't even know it's possible. I feel like everything we're talking about is at the margins. And this is just so critical for us as a city. And so I don't know what to put on your list, Justin. But I'm not convinced that we have really been creative in terms of solutions here.
I don't.
There you go.
Happy to. So we're still talking code enforcement?
Yeah.
This may or may not be helpful in the future, but I do have my deputy mayor is going to be doing research on best practices on how other communities are able to deal with this throughout the US. So hopefully we can come back with something creative very soon.
Thank you.
Like Councilor Christensen, I really like that push. I think it's really good. I think constraints help foster creativity, because I wonder like in some ways focusing this a little bit on certain types of zoning enforcement could help, because then it gets our minds thinking, okay, how exactly might you in a creative way solve that problem? This is a wild example, but just to illustrate something with an extreme example is like during the campaign, I knocked doors and someone asked me, why in the code are geese or maybe it was ducks? Why are ducks not allowed, but chickens are? And so I would imagine that we're not necessarily trying to improve zoning enforcement for ducks. Maybe we are, but that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, is like maybe narrowing the scope. Like I wonder, like, Scott, do you feel like you know what success is as defined by this body? Just based on the guidance we've given, like, do you have constraints that focus you?
I think the definition of success has been somewhat ambiguous. And just to talk about what we talked about over the years, we want to see, reimagining of code enforcement. What does that exactly mean? I've done the research to look for various opportunities. The RFP, we're looking at trying to find ways to, find rental dwellings in the city without having to go door to door waiting for neighbors to complain. And hopefully we'll have that resource very soon. To me, success has been getting resolution to cases that we have on our books and ensuring that those resolutions stick. And so when I hear neighbors continue complaining about a property, I get as frustrated as you and they do. That we've got somebody in the neighborhood doing the same thing again. All right, here we go again. We got to start. We got to start again from first base. We don't, depending on the time frame. But legal constraints come into play. Where do how do we balance stronger enforcement versus making sure that we're not overstepping any constitutional rights, which I don't think anybody's asking us to do. But that's a careful balance that we have to navigate, along with making sure that we're getting the right evidence as we're doing our investigation to make sure that for those few people that are really pushing against us, that we have the evidence to go to the court and say, no, they are in violation of the code, and this is why. So there's a lot of things in play with code enforcement that I think the short answer to what does success look to you is resolution of cases where properties actually come into compliance, and doing it in a very timely manner. And that's where my focus since I become the zoning administrator has been, is really trying to make sure that we're getting to cases faster and getting resolved in a more timely manner.
Yeah, and I would add less about chickens and poultry, and this should be home ownership enforcement. That's what this is about. And so maybe because in terms of parking, I don't have any issue. Again, you guys are killing it. nice work. It's really about priority number one. Without this priority number one doesn't happen. And so it's rental dwelling licenses. It's all of those, associated things.
Homeowner occupancy.
Homeowner occupancy, yes. Yeah.
Chip, I thought Rachel Whipple defined success a week ago. She said success is when the city council stops receiving 70 complaints. So not to what.
If I may just real quick, having the focus last year of requesting, let's look at illegal ADUs throughout the city. That was great to have. Okay, this is the priority. We get a lot of complaints about things that most people think are silly, a sign from a business that's on that business's property, but is a technical violation of the code. Well, it is our responsibility to enforce the code, so we're gonna do, some level of enforcement on that. Some citizens disagree with the level of enforcement we do at times, but it's up to us to make that call as to how strong we're gonna be enforcing those various rules. But having an understanding from the council and from the mayor as to what the priorities of the types of cases that they want to see us focus on is absolutely helpful. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. All right. Thank you, Justin, for helping us look through those, review those, and add comments and clarifications. We'll now take a 10-minute break. Reconvene at 3:35 for the last section of our work session.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. And thanks, everyone. We'll reconvene then and begin the last part of our work session. We have basically two 30-minute discussions. The first is on a proposal to formally prioritize lifestyle industry growth and align economic development. And then we'll switch to RDA for the final 30 minutes. So we welcome Caitlin Johns, our management analyst, who will present this item to us. An exciting item, one that was fun to read about. And Caitlin, we're excited to hear what you've got to present.
Okay.
Begin.
Thank you. Hello, council. I think I've had the pleasure of meeting almost all of you in person, but for those I haven't, my name is Caitlin, and I'm new to Provo City. I started in May, and I've been to a handful of council meetings, but this is my first time on this side of the podium. I'm excited to present and hope that you share in that excitement as well. I apologize in advance. I've got a script. There's a lot in here, so I just don't want to miss anything. But today I am presenting for your consideration a proposed general plan text amendment that would help shift the focus of Provo's economic development strategy and ultimately place a new trajectory on the city's future. So while the change itself is pretty straightforward, it does carry layered and far-reaching implications that extend well beyond updating language in a document. I have worked closely with city staff and engaged with external stakeholders to provide a comprehensive view of what this amendment could mean. And my goal today is to outline the text amendment proposal, explain its potential impacts, and address any questions that you may have as you consider its potential for adoption. For clarity to the mayor's office, city council, and the public, the intent of this presentation today is solely to gauge whether the city council finds value in this proposal before using more staff time to take it through planning commission and city council night meetings. There will be some discussion on zoning implications and potential accommodations to processing business and project applications, which merely serves to provide a whole picture of what adopting this general plan text amendment could look like. If this item is approved by council to continue through the normal planning commission and council processes for review and consideration, additional items that specifically speak to zoning and process implications will be added to those future agendas as additional individual agenda items. Before I go on, I would like to recognize some city staff that has helped either through brief conversation or very extensive conversation, specifically Aaron Ardmore. I've been in his office more than he would probably like, but they've all been very instrumental. And coming from the federal space, everything local government is new to me. And so I just thought it would be a huge disservice if I didn't mention in front of all of you and in a public hearing, just the willingness to help, the expertise and the passion that's all shared on through development services. So let's talk about why we're here. This whole thing came about as I, being new to Provo, was trying to identify
Provo's identity. Moving here from out of state, I was immediately looking for an answer to the question of what is Provo known for? And without really receiving a consistent answer, I figured it was appropriate to either do some digging to uncover the answer ourselves or pave the path for what we want that answer to be. Provo has an extremely unique opportunity to strengthen its economic base by intentionally targeting healthcare and life sciences as priority industries. With existing academic, healthcare, and workforce assets already in place, policy updates and strategic investment can position the city to attract high-wage employers, diversify the local economy, and support long-term economic resilience. We all already know a lot about healthcare, and so I'd like to take some time today to provide some context and substance to what life sciences encompasses. And so in the simplest terms, the differentiating factor is that healthcare focuses on the delivery of patient care, but life sciences focuses on studying living organisms and biological processes that drive innovation in medicine and health. So prior to today's meeting, you were sent a video that will also appear later on in this presentation that speaks at greater length about the magnitude of which life sciences impacts Utah's economy. In short, and to briefly introduce the industry for the purposes of this presentation, life sciences generates approximately $22 billion in state GDP and supports nearly 200,000 jobs in Utah. As depicted on this slide, life sciences also strengthens business attraction, supports high-wage job growth, retains skilled talent, and enhances economic stability by reducing exposure to broader market downturns. Provo is uniquely equipped to compete in this space due to its concentration of medical and health education institutions and a strong research and talent pipeline. Targeting this industry aligns with the city's longstanding goal, as stated within the general plan, of attracting higher paying jobs while reducing exposure to macroeconomic volatility. Provo has an upper hand in that our geographic positioning offers opportunities for relatively lower operating costs and shorter proximity to an airport compared to nearby markets. It also shows strong alignment with the state's goals, as this industry is supported and targeted by the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity and the Economic Development Corporation of Utah. Provo is already home to IHC, BYU's College of Engineering and College of Life Sciences, Nordic College of Osteopathic Medicine, and Rocky Mountain University of Health Professions. Together, these institutions create a concentration of health education and clinical training that few Utah cities can match. With IHC deepening its relationship with BYU through the new School of Medicine, Nordic standing as the largest medical school in the state, and the development of a future joint partnership between Nordicom and Minovo to establish a new health institute, Provo is well positioned for expanded research and development collaboration. Combined with BYU's Technology Licensing Office, the Roland Center for Entrepreneurship and Placement Office, our ecosystem has organically evolved into a powerful and sustainable talent engine, one of the most valuable and difficult to replicate advantages that any city can have. Focusing on life sciences benefits not only the industry itself and upcoming graduates, but the city's economy and long-term prosperity as a whole. While Salt Lake County has a strong life science cluster, rising costs make Provo a competitive and very attractive alternative for firms looking to come into or expand in Utah. By offering lower real estate costs, strong access to a skilled workforce, and potentially streamlined municipal processes tailored to the industry, Provo presents a compelling value proposition that is one of the city's most marketable strengths. What bringing life sciences means to Provo is that doing so will serve as a strong macroeconomic risk barrier because of its inelasticity on a global scale. Additionally, life science jobs consistently pay above average regional wages and are less vulnerable to recession-driven layoffs, supporting the city's longstanding goal of increasing higher paying employment. Ultimately, beyond attracting and retaining highly skilled workers, their higher salaries raise our census-reported average median income. On paper, our AMI is currently low compared with neighboring cities due to Provo's large student population. This hurts the city by making it harder to attract a diverse range of employers and reducing the effectiveness of broader recruitment efforts for higher paying industries, firms, and more broadly, retailers.
Just out of curiosity, do you know what that green bar above Provo looks like if you take students out?
Yes. I did remove the student bias. It's through a lot of interpolation and guesstimation, but it does raise it to about 88.
88?
So we're like on par with Springville is what you're saying?
Correct.
Wow.
But so does Orem's number still have their students in it as well?
Yes.
So if you took their students out, they'd be like,
well, I mean, they might not have as many students. Theirs might go to 88.
No, that's okay.
I know that. You knocked your door.
I've constructed the framework of an economic development strategy based on thoughtful policy actions and long-term investment, intending to allow Provo the opportunity to proactively create the conditions needed to attract and retain life science firms. This approach not only provides stability, but also signals our commitment to industry partners and positions the city for sustained economic growth. I've begun preliminary efforts to understand what implementing this change of the general plan and economic landscape entails, starting with identifying what may become healthcare and innovation corridors. First, the Riverwoods area already includes an established research and business park zone that generally extends from 4800 north to 5600 north and from University Avenue to the Provo-Orem boundary. This area is well suited to support firms engaged in diagnostics, bioinformatics, and certain types of biotechnology and biopharmaceutical research and development. In the North Park neighborhood, the healthcare facilities zone at its furthest points spans from 800 North to Cougar Boulevard and Exchange Park to Freedom Boulevard. Currently supports the needs of Intermountain Health and is primarily oriented toward hospital-related uses. While some life science activities could be accommodated, the zone as it sits is being maximized to focus on supporting core healthcare operations. In East Bay, there are multiple zones across several areas that could support a range of life science uses. Properties within the PIC, HCF, and M1 zones are well positioned to accommodate diagnostics, informatics, and research and development, as well as biotechnology, R&D, and light processing, small-scale vivarium, medical device R&D and manufacturing, and nutraceutical activities. In West Provo, the airport industrial zone presents an opportunity to accommodate heavier manufacturing and more specialized life science uses, including larger scale vivarium, cell and gene therapies, biologics, and advanced diagnostics that benefit from immediate airport access to protect the integrity of time and temperature sensitive samples and pharmaceuticals. Having the Provo airport directly adjacent to these zones provides a significant competitive advantage over emerging life science hubs such as West Valley and Lehigh, which require travel to the Salt Lake City International Airport. As the Provo airport continues to expand and add new routes, this advantage will become even more pronounced. As you'll see here, I've met with several key stakeholders who currently drive and will continue to feel the impacts of the healthcare and life sciences industries in Provo. These conversations included leadership from IHC's Utah Valley Hospital, the Associate Dean at BYU's College of Life Sciences, and also from BYU, a professor in cell biology and physiology, the Vice President of Institutional Advancement at Nordicom, and the President of Rocky Mountain University. While these discussions covered a wide range of topics, a few clear themes emerged. First, the depth and diversity of talent these institutions produce, all entirely within Provo city limits, represents a major competitive advantage. Second, there are multiple life science subsectors that make sense for our market, ranging from diagnostics and informatics to medical technology, further enhancing that life sciences would be successful here. From a healthcare perspective, both IHC and NORDA, and really the state as a whole, are concerned about replacing a significant portion of the workforce expected to retire over the next 20 years. From the life sciences side, there was strong and consistent feedback that a lack of lab space and shared lab resources is limiting startup growth and putting Provo at risk of losing talent, technologies, and companies to other parts of Utah or out of the state altogether. What is especially encouraging is that all of these stakeholders expressed enthusiasm about partnering with Provo City in these efforts. I invite you to review the last row of the table and the list of suggested actions summarized. While some concerns will be obvious and familiar, such as housing affordability and access to highways in the airport, others that were raised that are less discussed less often is the need for high-end housing stock to attract later career professionals. And I apologize, Catrice, I didn't know you were gonna say that before. Otherwise, I wouldn't have wrote that.
Something that also comes up when TPI interviews companies that are leaving Provo. They go to Lehigh, Mapleton, and
Sure. In my conversations, it was also reiterated to me the importance of recruiting larger, well-known companies, even outside of healthcare and life sciences, to provide career options for spouses and families relocating to the area. The general plan has reflected strong interest in supporting startups, which the city has done and will continue to do. But I wanted to bring this up as well to mention the importance of positioning Provo to attract larger firms and industries is not lost on economic development. We know Provo has a highly educated and talented workforce pipeline, but we also recognize there are gaps that affect our competitiveness,
which I'm happy to discuss if any of you would find that helpful. Not explicitly included on this slide is information from Rocky Mountain University due to earlier timing and availability conflicts. Since submitting this presentation to council staff for review, I was able to connect with the university's president. Their perspective largely echoed NORDA's, sharing a primary focus on healthcare. However, the president has shared current and ongoing plans to expand the university's emphasis on life sciences, driven by emerging bio-innovation efforts. While optometry remains a core focus and the university currently has sufficient lab space to meet its projected needs, there is strong understanding and support for the external needs of neighboring colleges and universities that lack clear pathways for placing their entrepreneurs. Like NORDA, Rocky Mountain expressed concern about the limited availability of local residency and preceptorship opportunities in the area. They indicated that Provo could play a meaningful role by supporting East Bay revitalization efforts and by facilitating productive conversations with local institutions to expand the number of residency programs. Finally, specific to IHC, NORDA, and Rocky Mountain, several requested partnership efforts extend beyond the scope of economic development alone, such as supporting the return of Utah medical graduates after residency or creating incentives for employers to prioritize local graduates. I share this to underscore that adopting a shift in the general plan will require coordinated, cross-departmental efforts and investment and strong support from the city administration and council to realize its full potential. I have already begun taking an inventory of existing and future buildings as well as available land to assess our capacity to support lab spaces of varying sizes along with the development and industrial sites. These opportunities are concentrated in the previously identified areas of Riverwoods, North Park, East Bay, and West Provo. So long as this proposal is supported to move forward through the processes of Planning Commission and Council night meetings, I'm happy to have more serious and intentional conversations with building and landowners about their appetite to take projects like these on. To add, however, I have had multiple conversations with people in the industry who have expressed high interest in owning and operating lab spaces for life science startup companies because of the low supply and high demand. I'm happy to expand on the importance and effects of this if any of you would find that helpful. Something else to keep in mind is that life science companies are redevelopment friendly and that they are well suited for research parks, underutilized commercial corridors, and industrial zones transitioning away from traditional manufacturing. This provides the city with leverage in repositioning aging assets, increases assessed value and property tax per acre without increasing footprint or investing in costly infrastructure extensions, and finally, in using existing infrastructure more efficiently. Another way economic development can contribute is by dedicating time, effort, and funds to marketing Provo as a premier location for healthcare and life science companies. Our initial plan includes attending local events hosted by organizations such as Bio Utah, GoYo, and EDC Utah to support recruitment efforts. We've already allocated a modest portion of our budget to join Bio Utah at the standard membership level with the intention of upgrading to an elite membership as our infrastructure develops, providing expanded opportunities for print and digital branding, event sponsorships, and exhibitor participation at the key conferences. So finally, we're here. This is the core of today's presentation. The purpose of making you sit through all of this is to present a case for your consideration of a general plan text amendment that would formally prioritize healthcare and life science growth, positioning Provo to attract incoming firms while establishing the policy framework needed to align the city with this new strategic focus. This serves as an additional marketing tool for incoming healthcare and life science firms that Provo is ready, willing, and able to support these industries. On the next slide, I have two proposed options for updating the general plan text on page 49 of the general plan, where the city's economic development strategies are outlined. For your quick refresher, the current language emphasizes attracting higher payer jobs, specifically targeting tech. Version A focuses explicitly on healthcare and life sciences, signaling a high level of intentionality, stating that Provo City seeks to attract additional employers that provide higher paying jobs with a specific emphasis on life science and healthcare innovation firms. Building on the city's strengths, including the BYU Medical School, regional healthcare institutions, emerging research assets, and the local workforce pipeline, Provo will proactively pursue companies engaged in biotechnology, medical devices, diagnostics, healthcare technology, and related life sciences activities. Version B retains the focus on tech while adding life sciences as an additional priority, offering a broader approach for economic development. A condensed version of either of these or another variation of them are also welcomed and encouraged to be considered.
Realistically, this means either creating a new zone or modifying existing zoning districts to accommodate these uses. Creating clear and supportive zoning reduces barriers to entry, enables industry clustering, and positions the city to attract and retain life science firms. There are two primary approaches to consider. The first is establishing a dedicated life sciences overlay zone, and the second is allowing specific life science uses as conditional uses within existing zones such as M1, Research and Business Park, healthcare facilities, and airport industrial. From a marketing and clarity standpoint, I have personal preference for option one. A life sciences overlay zone or bio-innovation overlay zone, whatever council or planning would choose to call it, would make it easier for prospective firms to quickly understand where and how they can operate. Similar to the existing data center overlay, this approach would require a rezone application, ensuring that projects are reviewed by the Planning Commission and City Council. Given the Planning Department's ongoing Title 14 rewrite to simplify our existing codes, an overlay zone also avoids overcomplicating existing zoning districts or requiring firms to navigate through all of our codes to find relevant information. Because the life sciences industry is consistently evolving, this structure would allow us to clearly define which uses are encouraged or excluded, while also providing flexibility to update the code over time as new technologies and uses emerge. Option two is viable and preferred by planning staff in the interest of simplicity, but it may be less attractive for both the city and prospective firms. While it would reduce the number of rezone applications, it would also limit the council's ability to review and approve individual projects. This approach could make it harder for firms to clearly identify where life sciences uses are allowed, and broadly permitting life sciences within existing zones could unintentionally allow projects that are not aligned with the city's goals. Although an overlay zone with this much specificity contradicts the efforts of the Title 14 rewrite, planning has expressed support of whatever the council feels is best. Although FDA regulations impose strict standards on many life science activities, this approach could still open the door. Sorry, I'm still referring to option two. Option two could still open the door to uses with undesirable environmental or waste impacts. Given how broad and rapidly evolving the life sciences industry is, it would be difficult, if not impossible, to comprehensively define all acceptable and unacceptable uses within existing zones without creating confusion or unintended outcomes. This is the video that was included in your agenda packet featuring Kelvin Cullimore, former mayor of Cottonwood Heights and current CEO of BioUtah, which is the state's life sciences trade association. I'm happy to replay the video or briefly summarize his key points. Kelvin has been instrumental in helping me better understand the life sciences industry, identify successful strategies used in other cities, and think through how Provo can position itself as the next and best destination for life science companies. In summary, he expressed a preference for option one of the recommended zoning changes and emphasized that a streamlined, predictable approval process for life science projects would set Provo apart as a statewide leader. He suggested establishing clear process timelines, such as committing to Planning Commission consideration within a defined number of days after an application is filed, followed by placement on a city council agenda within a set time frame after Planning Commission action. If the council is interested in exploring this approach, I would respectfully propose drafting language that only guarantees Planning Commission scheduling within a specified number of days of receiving a complete application and approval from the coordinated review committee in order to proceed. Lastly, I want to flag a potential need for future appropriation of funds to the economic development budget. Supporting these efforts will likely require additional economic development resources for printed and digital branding and marketing materials, memberships and event sponsorships, targeted studies, workforce and academic partnership initiatives, and travel related to in-state and out-of-state recruitment. To date, economic development has pursued a short-term modest investment strategy within our existing budget to support marketing and sponsorship activities, but a sustained long-term strategy would require expanded resources, with travel expenses being the most immediate need. And finally, that's it.
That's it.
That's all.
Well, Caitlin, let me be the first to thank you for your presentation. That was excellent, informative, encouraging, and exciting. I, for one, could not find the embedded link on the video.
Okay.
Could you just send that to us?
Maybe if you could send that, we
Sure.
can follow up with that.
Okay.
Okay. But I think we have several questions here. wants to start? Becky?
I was just gonna start and say, I love how she's found something that we've missed, right? And I love how she's done everything that we asked for the economic development plan to be in place. But I think we're putting the cart before the horse. Caitlin, I love you. I love what we've done here. I think you've got the vision. I just think we need to get our economic development plan in place before we decide this is the direction we want to go.
Okay.
But I think you've got the vision of what we had discussed here an hour ago.
Yeah.
And if this is the case, I'm glad that you're ready to just run with it.
Sure.
There's Patrice.
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. That was a great presentation. I love your slides, everything was great.
Oh, thank you.
Exactly what Becky said. You started this before we even made our part.
Yes.
So you're way ahead of us, and this is something I think we've all think is a no-brainer, right? With medical school coming, with Florida and their goals long-term, because they want to do a bunch of startups and like labs and stuff, I know. So, and I know BYU has some intentions, and there's like a bunch right there. So I'm assuming this is gonna come to the top in our economic study, but we absolutely have to do that first. And go with the facts on, you know, just get more data, which you have a lot of data, and I do think this will come to the top, but we need to do that first. And we're gonna do it fast, so.
We're gonna do it fast.
So in 4 months from now, expect to come back is what I'm saying.
Okay.
And I agree with you with the zoning on item number 1.
Okay.
Craig.
That's not relevant.
You got it.
Okay. I wanted to go back to what you said. I didn't want to interrupt the flow. Did you say that Norda was the largest
Yes.
what?
Medical school in the state. They have the highest number of graduates per year in
More than the University of Utah?
yes.
Yes.
By how much? How much?
I don't know about a comparison. I do know that they are graduating their second class this year, and I think it's about 200 graduates.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I would echo, this is exactly, I've got goosebumps. You can't see it. But I've got goosebumps. And as has been said, I don't know if this is one of our top 1 or 2 bets, but this is what, this is right spot on. So thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Yeah, I just am curious, I have some questions.
Yeah.
So based on some of my research, life sciences is like pretty broad. It encompasses like biotech, pharma, life science tools, medical device and equipment manufacturing, healthcare supplies and services. So I'm curious, like, is there, in your research, is there benefit to even narrowing it down? Like, for example, like going to our previous discussion, what can Provo be the best in the world at? Is there like a sub industry within life sciences that we feel like there's maybe some momentum that it's underserved by other areas? I'm just curious if you looked into that at all.
Yeah, this is a question I asked all the stakeholders and I interviewed, and based on everybody's different niche, there were different answers. I think if you're concerned about footprint and maybe output, diagnostics and bioinformatics, epigenetic profiling, things that don't require huge lab spaces that could maybe be done in office buildings if they convert the HVAC to meet FDA regulation and all that stuff, could be great. I also, to your point, would want to do more research to see, would we be shooting ourselves in the foot by limiting our scope? I think because there's such a diverse talent here, even the graduates coming out of the College of Engineering, there's so much there with R&D, both from the pharmaceutical and biotech side to the med tech side in terms of wearable devices, that it would be a shame to cut ourselves off at the knee if we don't absolutely have to. And I think because we do have such diverse zoning and opportunity in different areas, we may not have to cut ourselves off in that way. And certainly just because a zone qualifies to have it, the overlay on top of it, doesn't mean that it has to be life sciences. So we're also not narrowing ourselves in what we can do in the AI zone or in the M1, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I have 2 more quick questions. So in this presentation, it sort of has very 2 concrete, like if we were to bet on this, these are 2 immediate things we do. We'd add a general plan amendment and we would create this zone. And then there's kind of like a list of other things we could potentially do. I'm curious if you could speak to that. Like, what does going all in on this, like just paint a picture for us as an example,
Like, what does that mean for the city, or
What does it look like? Like
take
what,
from the city?
no, what would it look like for Provo to go all in on this, just for discussion's sake?
We became the new Houston.
Sure. I think you definitely get a different clientele here as permanent residents is also a main goal. And I think in doing that, which is kind of what started this research as well, is Cody and I have found it a little bit more difficult than we really anticipated it would be to attract different businesses and retailers here. And a lot of that comes to that AMI. And when you're on paper comparing us to Spanish Fork or Orem or somewhere else, why would they sit down and talk with me about my little financial or my little model about removing that bias from the student population? So I think by increasing the folks or increasing the salaries of folks that live here is a huge help, not just for life science graduates, but for the city as a whole. I think it changes the trajectory of the city. Again, it's inelastic. And so even through multiple recessions, this industry has been resilient. And so you've got people who are still earning money and spending money, even in economic downturns, maybe not to the same magnitude, but nonetheless. And so I think, again, I don't think that this could be a successful venture if it's just expected that economic development does the lifting. I think this would also come down to the zoning changes, and maybe that Kelvin's suggestion of a streamlined process to get things approved and reviewed could set us above them going to West Valley, Lehigh, Vineyard.
They just landed at the Huntsman.
Yes.
Okay, one last question.
Yeah.
And this is just a little framework I came up with, so it's probably not perfect while I was researching this. But so to the point about AMI, there's different ways that AMI can change. It can change by increasing the earnings of your existing population.
Yes.
By helping them upscale or giving them better opportunities. It can change by new entrants entering the labor force, having a higher average starting salary, and then it can change by importing high wage workers. And obviously there's probably like a blend of that is desirable, healthy, but I personally care about like the existing Provo residents a lot. And so I'm curious if you could speak to that. Like, is there a flavor of this where there's lots of low-end tech jobs or mid-level tech jobs and stuff that are actually opportunities for people to step up and increase their earnings? Or is it primarily we're going to have a lot of folks move in from out of the city with higher incomes?
That's a good question. I think for some of the manufacturing, there might be opportunity there. I'm not knowledgeable enough to know if jobs like that, I haven't gotten that far, would require 4-year degrees or any degree at all to be able to perform those types of duties. I think part of my other focus and something that became very evident to Cody and I when we stepped into our roles was that we're losing a lot of graduates to other cities. And it's like, well, and most of them don't want to leave, but there's nothing here for them.
There's not a job for them here.
Right. And so it's what is that balance? And to your point, I'm certainly not interested in just catering to one side of the scale on that. I think to Craig's point earlier, this is a vertical integration system. It is a combination of area revitalization. It's a combination of focusing on outdoor recreation and tourism to create a lifestyle that could help other companies that want to come here recruit and retain, and even make the upcoming graduates want to stay.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Rachel or Travis, any comments or questions? The
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and being as I'm married to a life scientist who runs a lab and does all these things, it's like, yeah, that would be good. I was wondering if another portion of this would end up being kind of prioritizing RDA funds or other incentives to businesses like this if they were to come into the area as part of the redevelopment of East Bay or some of these target geographic areas. And I didn't see that in the presentation.
Yeah, and so that's part of the continuation of, I wanted to at least provide toes in the water type of info, and maybe this was a little bit deeper than toes in the water, but enough for all of you to get a taste of what this could be and what this entails before roping in more city staff and diving deeper into that. But to your point, I do think it probably would require, I don't know about those specificities. But again, a citywide lift, it's not something that I think could take off just by economic development, changing a general plan and throwing in an overlay.
Right. Yeah, because I know IH is looking at expanding. They finally
Yes.
just tore down some of their empty buildings that they've got on Freedom Boulevard. And
Yes.
they have talked about doing this really high-tech sports medicine,
Yes.
physical therapy center.
There,
Yeah,
moving ahead.
in that location, which is fantastic. And I mean, I would love to see, you know, them as they expand, complementary industries and things coming up around there. Even like that little bank that's just north of us that's closed down, it's an empty thing, like those are our properties that could be useful for a thing like this. I love the idea of doing this kind of branding for Provo and saying we already have this and this is really what we want to be. And so I think this is fantastic work. I am confident that this will be worked into the broader plan. It's just amazing, Caitlin.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Caitlin, as you met with stakeholders and reviewed the city as a whole, and I was hard pressed in my mind to think through Riverwoods, East Bay, life sciences, current life sciences businesses. Did you find any? Do we have any in the city right now in this category that could potentially be leveraged if we
Yes.
move in this direction?
So in the Rocky Mountain building, there is a company, I believe it's called Canary Speech, and they are using AI to help folks that cannot communicate. And so we're seeing that. We are seeing a lot of medical tech where it's wearable devices that would help with diagnostics, or it's wearable technology that monitors you 24/7, so that if you do have some sort of episodic event, it is tracked in real time, and your provider could see all of your vitals at that time to try to make a link to see what is causing that episodic event. And so there's also a lot of startups that are in BYU that are kind of sitting tight. Once they start to commercialize, they need to get off of campus.
Okay.
So they're in a sticky spot as well. And a lot of them have shown interest in Pleasant Grove and other areas that are willing to jump on this bandwagon, which I think speaks to some of the concern about losing the technology and the talent to other cities.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Caitlin. Patrice?
So the FDA just lowered standards on wearable devices, that's the good thing. But my husband's invested in some company out of BYU and they all moved to Salt Lake.
Yes.
They have to leave BYU.
And I think there's some lab space up there. There's two to my knowledge that are pretty expansive. But I think there is the demand for Utah County, and I think Kelvin Collimore will speak to that in the video. And again, also just our positioning with the airport sets us at such a higher advantage than so many cities in Salt Lake County. As that begins to expand its routes, I really think it gives us an edge on some of these other hubs. We also just have lowered real estate costs that make us an attractive space.
Becky?
I'm just gonna put in a plug. I did talk with Jonathan Hill. I told you that I did. I think it would be really beneficial for the council to hear his experience and going through planning and zoning to get his office and lab and everything together in Pleasant Grove. Because as I'm hearing these questions, I'm like, yeah, Jonathan said this, and this. So either when we decide to go forward, either having him come back, he's more than willing to come and answer questions, or just give him a phone call, because he said Pleasant Grove was really hard, and there's just so many things that he could answer.
Yeah, Jonathan was one of the stakeholders that I interviewed. He was able to show me around his lab. His lab is one of the, it requires about 20,000 square feet. So that's where I think Airport Industrial or East Bay would make sense for a facility like that. It's a beautiful building. And again, with all the FDA regulations, they set a high standard. So I don't think, even if council did have preference for just adding conditional uses to existing zones, I don't think that we could get a bad product because of the FDA standards, but
I just figured the council would like to keep a pulse on what's coming in and out of Provo. Craig?
Just a quick question. You were going through and you went through several options, and one option was just life sciences or life sciences and tech.
Yes.
What was your recommendation?
Well, it's interesting. Tech is just volatile. And it's not to say that keeping it in there or removing it, maybe it does too much, or maybe it doesn't do enough. That's, I think, up for discussion. But I think by targeting specifically the life sciences and healthcare just sends a clearer message of what the city's willing to invest in and provide support for. I think tech can be done anywhere, but to have the infrastructure we have here in these institutions cannot be easily replicated. And I think to really hone in on that and that be the marketing tool to Cody and my recruitment efforts would be in the better favor. I could also understand the argument that if you remove tech from that language, that might not send a signal that we want either, is that we're not tech friendly. So I think that's also just a discussion point for council.
My own bias would be focus. You get extremely focused, and the narrower you get, the more successful. It's like looking for a job. So it's tempting to, well, let's put in that, and there's a shoemaker and they're coming down, let's put in that. Love the idea of the focus and then really doing everything we can to make that attractive. So I would go title.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? When you say tech, are you meaning essentially software and SaaS?
I think, yeah, tech is it's just written in the general plan as tech. So I think it is a broad brush to just be all inclusive of everything. And so if you did want to specify SaaS or something and you feel that that's a strong industry, while we're at the amendment, we can probably just do whatever.
I just was looking for clarification.
Sure.
I make a joke that every industry is tech now, and so it's kind of become a meaningless.
Life sciences is tech in its own right as well. Yeah. Well, Caitlin, thank you very much. Thank you. I think what I hear from the council is we're very enthused about your work and your project. Would like to continue with our economic development focus over the next 90 days or 90 minutes, Craig?
I thought it was 60
You'll
minutes.
take the 90 minutes if you give it to him.
And circle back and include you in these conversations. In the meantime, thanks for forwarding to us the link for that video. You got it. And we'll love to continue these conversations. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Caitlin. If there's no objection, we'll now recess the municipal council and convene the RDA governing board by unanimous consent. Then turn the time to Rachel.
Welcome to the RDA board. We're going to have a discussion regarding the Lakeview Parkway CRA. This will be presented by Melissa McNally, who is the RDA director. Melissa, welcome. We're so glad that you're here.
Thank you. It's great to be here. So based on the last discussion we had in December about the Lakeview Parkway CRA proposal, I removed the parcels that are currently being used as farmland from the CRA area and just walked back the plan and the budget to only include the 3 parcels that we originally intended to include. I also wanted to point out that we have brought this forward along with the plans for the Walmart, where the Walmart is going on that first parcel. Thank you. And really, this should have been presented as its own plan and its own entity. The idea was to help incentivize Walmart, but really this plan can be used as a tool to incentivize anything that the RDA board would like to see go into the commercial spaces, both here and at the Epic Sports Park. Do you?
Yes, okay.
Okay, so that's awesome. So let me understand, does it have a set list of incentives on its own? Or like were the Walmart incentives you presented before specific to Walmart? Or would all incentives just be negotiated per situation?
Yes, they would be negotiated
as the offers come in. I left some of the asks in there because this particular parcel, because it is in the floodplain, because there is extensive work that needs to be done to and around this site to make it a viable commercial space. I left those things in there just for the sake of seeing just exactly what costs are involved in developing that particular commercial space. But as different retailers come forward, whether it's Walmart or someone else, any incentives offered will be on a case-by-case basis, and nothing moves forward without negotiating with you, the RDA board.
So the negotiations are project specific.
Yes, they are. Sorry, that was a long answer for us. Thanks, Bill. Are there any other questions? Really the only things that changed in the plan was removing specifically Walmart, and then walking back the acreage within the plan. Everything else is pretty much the same.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's the status on the RFP for the Epic Sports Park commercial property?
You know what, Cody can speak to that since he's in charge of the RFP. So our economic development division director.
Economic Development Division Director. So the status of the RFP is it went out and we selected a development group, and they have told us that they are going to send us a term sheet by next week for basically a partnership on a development in that area that includes hotel and retail, gas station and a mini bar.
Can you repeat that again?
Hotel, commercial, so specifically restaurants, small restaurants. I think they're at full build out, 8 pads for restaurants, a mini mart, and a gas station.
That's it all fits on that little spot?
It all fits on the 5 acres.
It all goes straight up.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, does it go straight up?
Yeah.
Is it
And
probably
we were really excited. What really drove us to this group was the really focus on restaurants. There was another group that had 2 hotels, and which is also a very attractive option. Really would support the tourism industry, but wouldn't have the same impact as far as activating and bringing vitality to the west side like restaurants would. So that's the status on that. And then once we have the term sheet from them, then we can start discussing it, and we'll negotiating it, and then bringing it here for approval.
Oh, that's
great.
such good news.
That's what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and the reason that we have, economic development would really like that parcel in there is because it could potentially enhance the development that we could get out of that parcel. And so, especially when we're working in a partnership with the developer, a profit sharing agreement, it could potentially benefit Provo, not just in the sales tax revenues and the TRT taxes, but in enhancing the property tax base there.
What's a TRT tax?
The transient room tax, the short-term lease of hotels, hospitality.
All right. Okay. So just to be clear for the record, what we're looking at for the study area is only 3 parcels now.
Yes.
1 parcel by the Epic Sports Park, which we're looking at the development that Cody just talked about.
Yes, that's this.
And
Yes.
then the other 2 parcels, which have been identified as a potential site for the Walmart. And that one is the one you left in the information about the land mitigation, like the filter
Right.
and everything, because whoever builds on that will have to do that mitigation, and will run into those extraordinary costs.
Yes. Yes, they will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Melissa on this, this CRA? Mayor, did you have any comments? Okay, good. That's great. All right then.
Okay.
Are we all happy with this?
So happy.
There's happiness.
I'm not
Okay,
happy with the terms with the Walmart, but I am happy with the area.
That's a different discussion.
that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did just want to say, because this was renoticed, so it's in another 30-day, notice, period. So this will not come before you for a vote until the 10th of February. So.
okay. Thank you so much, both for your work on this and exploring the idea of looking more expansively, and then taking the feedback from us and from the community. Because I think it was worthwhile to look to see if there were broader things that could be done, and then to realize that we're not there. And so it's more useful to focus on these very narrow things so that we can do these things well. I know it's frustrating to do that, right? To be expansive and to feel maybe shot down. But I think you have been responsive to us as the board, and I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. There were also some really interesting ideas with the farmland. I like the agrotourism ideas that was put out there, and I think those are things worth exploring, maybe in a different plan, as some of those farmers and landowners are looking at preserving that space. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that gives us other avenues to explore. They
Yeah.
just don't need to be part of this particular study.
exactly, yeah,
So
If that's something that they want.
if they want,
Ainsley's, I don't
Right.
think are
exactly,
on board with that.
exactly.
They're not at the point in their lives where that is something they're gonna embrace.
All right. Well, I think you found something that the board is comfortable with, and we'll look forward to voting on that in a future meeting.
okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, if there's no objection, we will now adjourn the RDA Governing Board and reconvene as the Provo Municipal Council by unanimous consent.
Okay, and we'll now consider a motion to close the meeting. Brian?
Yes, thank you, Chair Garrett. There is one item for discussion in closed meeting. This particular item actually has to do with deployment of security personnel and practices, which is again one of the approved purposes, so it would be appropriate for a motion to close the meeting.
All right, do we have a motion to move? A motion by Councillor Christensen with a second by
I'll second.
Councillor Whitlock.
Okay, and then we need a roll call.
And we'll take a vote to close the meeting then. Councillor McKay?
Yes.
Councillor Hogan?
Yes.
Councillor Whipple?
Yes.
Councillor Garrett, yes. Councillor Bogdan?
Yes.
Councillor Whitlock?
Yes.
Councillor Christensen.
Yes.